I'm ready whenever you guys are. Am I interviewing Mike today?
Yes, you are. Our wonderful guest should be here in about a few minutes. She's
Okay.
just running a little bit late.
Okay.
Junae should be here very shortly.
Okay. Did you hear back on pronunciation?
That's why I said it that way.
Yeah. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 7 of How to Build a Sustainable Music Career and Collect All Revenue Streams. I'm your host, author, and entrepreneur, Emily White. Huge thanks to the New York City Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment for making this season happen. This live podcast taping is a part of New York Music Month, the official celebration of New York City's vibrant and dynamic music ecosystem. Today's podcast is brought to you by our friends at Bandzoogle. We want to take this time to congratulate Bandzoogle members for surpassing $100 million in commission-free sales of music, merch, and tickets through their websites. Bandzoogle makes it easy to build a stunning website and online store for your music in minutes. All the features you need are already built in, including dozens of fully customizable templates, tools to sell music, merch, and tickets commission-free, mailing list tools to grow your fan list and send newsletters, integrations with Bandcamp, SoundCloud, YouTube, Bands in Town, and more, so you can easily add content from your other online profiles. Plus, live support from their musician-friendly team 7 days a week. Plans start at just $8.29 per month, which includes hosting and your own free custom domain name. How to Build a Sustainable Music Career and Collect All Revenue Streams podcast listeners can go to bandzoogle.com to try it free for 30 days and use the promo code SUSTAINABLE, all caps, to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. That's bandzoogle.com, promo code SUSTAINABLE. June also means it's Pride Month. I want to deeply thank our partners over at the Ally Coalition for supporting us and the crucial work they are doing. Founded in 2013 by Jack and Rachel Antonoff, the Ally Coalition provides critical support for organizations dedicated to bettering the lives of LGBTQ youth and raises awareness about the systematic inequalities facing the LGBTQ population. The Ally Coalition is committed to bettering the lives of LGBTQ youth through tours, social media campaigns, and collaborative partnerships. To learn more and how you can get involved, visit theallycoalition.org. Okay. Let's do this. So we're now we've taken you halfway, basically, through the modern music industry in full, which means you've gotten your art together, you've set up your community.com and marketing channels before you began recording, so that's in place, plus launched your pre-order or Patreon to monetize your music before it's even out. We covered everything you need to do legally around your music, in particular, ensuring everyone in the studio signs a work for hire agreement and you have a clear process to discuss and confirm songwriting splits. And you've recorded your music, which is very exciting. From there, you registered your songwriting with a performing rights organization and song trust or your publishing administrator. Last week, we dug in deep on the proper ways to distribute your music to receive the maximum amount of income while exploring where music distribution is headed via Web3 and so much more. So your music is out. Now what? Today, we're going to cover how to market with or without a budget, so let's get to it. To do so, I'm thrilled to bring out Junae Brown, also known as the Beyonce of Marketing, who is CEO of Brown to Perfection Agency. Junae, I'm just going to read a little bit of your bio so folks have a background here. Recognized by both the public and her colleagues for her expertise, Junae has been recently featured in major trade platforms like Forbes, AdWeek, AfroTech, and Morning Brew. After obtaining a bachelor's in business management with a concentration in music, she dove straight into work and has worked with the best of them at Sony Music, Columbia Records, and RCA. In these roles, she has had the opportunity to spearhead projects and work behind the scenes in various capacities with names like Beyonce, AC/DC, Usher, J. Cole, Tyler the Creator, T.I., Bryson Tiller, Eazy, Goldlink, H.E.R, Jazmine Sullivan, and more. It was within her cubicle at these office spaces that she created her business, Brown to Perfection, in 2016, where she and her team, comprised of all Black and people of color marketers, offer traditional and digital marketing, brand strategy, influencer marketing, and experiential event services. Welcome, Junae. Yeah, let's welcome Junae. Give it up for Junae.
Thank you so much. We're excited to be here.
Yes, we're so honored to have you. So let's start at the beginning. Where are you from?
So I'm from Harlem, New York, the east side of Harlem specifically. And that's where I grew up, born and raised. Then I went to college, as mentioned, out in Long Island. And now currently I'm based in Atlanta.
Love it. So it looks to me like you set out to be in the industry from day one. Tell us about your first experience at Power Five Worldwide.
Yeah, so that was amazing. Shout out to Bobby Springsteen, longtime mentor of mine. I actually met Bobby when I was a part of the Harlem Children's Zone um, by Jeffrey Canada. It's an incredible program where kids in Harlem, there's a school, but I actually was just a part of the high school after school program, and where we ideally were paid to like do after school. And so it's a genius idea because it's like kids just want to run around, but in Harlem, kids want to make money, right? Because we want to shop, we want to hang out with our friends. And so we pretty much were being paid to like take SAT classes, go on college tours, do tutoring. And there also was a music class. So I've been singing and writing music actually my entire life. A lot of people don't know that. And so at the time, I was going to performing arts school in New York City, of course, Talent Unlimited High School. I was a vocal major. And so I'm attending the after school program. And through the program, I'm singing. We ended up performing, for the governor and at Cipriani's. And we're doing all this at like 16, 17 years old. And so I'm learning a lot. And Bobby, who was the founder of Power Five Worldwide, he was also our music teacher. And so he had already had extensive A&R experience and experience working in music at companies like Bad Boy and things like that back in the day. And so this company was basically like a DJ kind of marketing and promotional platform that he had, a management company. And so I would pretty much just help him out with whatever was needed with that. I always tell people I started interning very, very early, as early as 16. And so I went from there to working with a brand management and marketing company that had an artist named Tess, and we got her on Good Morning America. She did Battle of the Bands. This is when like Afro punk first started, 100 years ago, it feels like now. But yeah, those are the kinds of things that I was doing pretty early on. That kind of helped me transition from outside of just doing music, being really interested in the business side of things.
I love that. And it's such a good reminder. I meet, high school students and young people all the time in New York City, a lot of times through the city's Sound Thinking program, and they often take for granted that they're here, right? Because you grew up here, but I'm just like, I'm from a village in the Midwest, so to be able to like have access to the subway and be able to get anywhere is incredible, but also like, it also doesn't matter where you live, right? So it's like I grew up outside of Milwaukee. It's like I could get involved with Summerfest, which is I didn't. I just went to Summerfest, but I just want to echo your point. Like there's always things to do when you're younger. So take advantage of that if you can.
Yeah, I mean, it's rough a bit because the city has so much going on.
Yeah.
And especially if you come from an underprivileged neighborhood, there's so many other distractions and things that you could get into. And so I'm really grateful for the programs that did exist and continue to exist in the city, that help make a difference. I tell people every day, if it wasn't for programs like Harlem Children's Zone, if it wasn't for stuff like summer youth, me having a job since I was 14 every summer, if it wasn't for things like that, I just don't know where I would be. So it's rough, but I think if you're looking for them, or if I always try to put the emphasis on the adults around, right? Like who really push to the youth to get them involved in things. If you present the opportunity, most kids will, utilize it. And they may not realize in the moment how amazing that is, but then, years down the line, they're like, wow, because look at me.
It's so true. Yeah. And I just want to add a little bit more info about Sound Thinking. That's a free, I never know what to call it, like kind of boot camp workshop for New York City public high school for New York City teenagers, basically, who are interested in learning about the music business. So I feel like that's exactly the kind of program you're talking about.
Yep.
And free lunch at Sound Thinking too. So
right, the food is important.
Yes.
You gotta feed the kids.
Exactly. So from there, you moved on to AE360 Media. What did you learn there?
AE360 Media. So that was actually the management and marketing company I was talking about with the artist Tess. So there, I learned everything that it took to develop an artist from scratch. Tess was an independent artist. I learned that there's so many moving pieces to get it from the creation of the music to getting it in front of people. I learned what it takes to get an artist ready, even once you figuring out how to land the opportunities. And then once you land them, all the preparation it takes to ace it, to really like kill it. And you know, she was a female artist, so there's glam, there's how we need a stylist, there's, you know, transportation, there's security, there's, you know, we want to do a release party, but here's our budget. How do we make that happen? How do we make sure it's in an ideal location? What are the different things that we add to it to make it, you know, make it worthwhile, make it go beyond just this fun event where everybody can kind of drink and eat and take pictures. And at the time, believe it or not, this was the time where Instagram was brand spanking new. So I also set up all their social media channels, Instagram, Twitter. I made sure their Facebook was up and running properly. And so it was also figuring out cool ways to use this very new thing. Like, I feel like most of us today can't even imagine a world where Instagram didn't exist. But like, that was literally at the same time. So I also got an opportunity to really learn digital at the bare bones levels. It of course changes so much, but the inherent thread of social media and why we're on it so much, and you know what it means and what it would become, I was able to kind of really get that lesson early on.
That's such a good point. And you know, we're obviously going to talk about social media in this episode, but you know, for those looking, you know, to follow Junae's footsteps and, you know, aspiring industry people, like a lot of times at your internships, folks are going to assume that you know how to do social media marketing because you're younger and very, you know, I don't think I've ever met a college student that actually knows how to do social media marketing. So the more you can, I'm not saying it's fair that people are assuming that you know how to do social media marketing, but just because you have an Instagram account doesn't mean you know how to market an artist. So the more you can learn, you know, from folks like Junae and a lot of the great resources that are out there, the more you can live up to those expectations that probably aren't fair, to be honest. So.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing though, what I will say is being younger, you do have a much better pulse on it. Yeah. Like, just because you consume things in such an organic way. So I'll also say on the flip side, don't underestimate how powerful you can be in a room as an intern. Because there's things that the people that are, you know, supervising you are responsible for, where we can't necessarily be in the apps and on every new trend and every new thing and see everything. We just don't have that type of disposable time, right? At this point in our career. So you may not know exactly how to market an artist yet, which is why when you're an intern, that's what you're supposed to learn. But definitely be the person who's like innovative, who brings stuff to the table. Hey, I saw this. I don't really know how we could utilize it, but maybe it could be cool. Hey, here's this new app people are talking about. Hey, here's this new trend people are utilizing on Snapchat, on TikTok, on Instagram. Hey, I saw an artist do this. Like, all of that stuff is helpful. And then I think your superior will be able to connect the dots and say, oh, okay, ding, ding, ding. This is how we can use that to market an artist. And then you end up kind of learning. That's kind of how, you know, that was my approach, especially when I started interning at the label at RCA. And I think executives definitely respect the intern who's like trying to bring something. Like, don't feel like you're being annoying, time and place, of course. But, you know, don't feel like you're being annoying or be afraid to speak up, because that's, you know, that's really how you get more opportunities to learn too.
And would you say, like, only do that if you genuinely have an idea versus, like, suggesting an idea just to have an idea? If that makes sense?
Yeah, for sure. Like, definitely be intentional, right? And sometimes, you know, I would say it doesn't necessarily have to be an idea. And if there is a structure in an internship where you get an opportunity to share things or, you know, present things, it depends on where you are. But if there's some sort of opportunity during the week or during the day where you can present things, write them down. You know what I mean? So it's also not this like constant thing, but in one sweeping motion, you can say, hey, I saw 5 things this week that are happening on social media and digital that I think would be cool. I'm not sure, but I did want to share them with you.
Yeah.
And it's like, cool. If they hate them, fine. But at least they also know now that you're the person who's going to bring them things. That goes a long way. And then you become the person that they ask about things when they want to know something that they don't understand. So it doesn't have to. I don't think. And I say this also as someone who has interns every semester, every 2 semesters. It doesn't have to be a grandiose idea.
Yeah.
It just has to be, for me, I think I respect and I like effort. I like seeing like the hunger of like, you really want to be here, you really are interested in this, you are really passionate about it. And I was told very long ago by one of my first bosses ever in music that good ideas come from anywhere. And I think the smartest people in the business, the most innovative people in the business, the most powerful people in the business live by that. So I would say, if you see something that's interesting that you think could connect the dot, go for it.
Incredible. I love it. Well, speaking of, interns and that age, you produced events at your alma mater, the wonderful Five Towns College. Tell us about your
Yes.
hip hop showcases there.
Oh my goodness. So the hip hop showcase is like, so Five Times is a music school, right? Like if you're in there, you're there to do something creative.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have like, by that point, we didn't have like sports teams. We don't have a homecoming. So the hip hop show is like one of the biggest events of the year. And before I was in charge of it, I actually helped a good friend of mine, Harlem, who still works in music to this day. Um, she was the head of the show, I think, the year before I did it. And so I was able to pretty much like assist her with everything, shadow her with everything. And she booked and a large artist to come. Like it was just every year you wanted to kind of up it and like make it better than the year before. And you being in charge of it was a big deal because it's like the biggest event of the school year, right? At this point, though, I had already been president of student government activities, but more so the activities side. And so I was already producing, like, I know it always sounds crazy, but like 66 events per semester. So if anyone had an idea about anything, they came to me, we figured it out. We got the marketing and the advertising together. We'd have the flyers ready for, around campus. We'd have it all on social media, promoted, like we're doing all the things, right? So when it came to the hip hop show, I had to have the marketing part ready, but I also had to do with booking of talent, the run of show, programming, who's going to host the show, what are we going to do about tickets, how are we going to get people outside of just the students to come. It was just all these different things. I even was like, are we going to do an after party? Like I'm just making it my own little like Grammy Award winning thing. We also did give out awards during that time too, like student driven voted awards. So it's this whole thing, right? And it was cool because we also had a tradition of doing a cipher, like very similar to like if you see like the BT Award ciphers. And so it was also having to gather like the best rappers in the school, and everybody in the school thinks they're the best rapper, right? And so I'm dealing with egos and hurt feelings, and I'm also like, well, we got to have the fan favorites, and we got to mix it up. And so I had them freestyle over two beats. One was an more old school rap beat. I don't know if it was Rapper's Delight, but something along those lines. The other one was All Go to Everything by Trinidad James, which was like one of the biggest songs at the time. And so what I did was I kind of made the people who had more traditional rap over the All Go Everything, and the people who were more like modern trap, like wherever we were at that time in music, right? I had them rap over the old school beat. So that was a thing. But then I had to film it, and I was like, I don't want them to film in the basement, so I made them film at a skate park. I just did a bunch of things to make it different. Like I really was producing an award show, and so I learned so much. I even freestyled in the event just to add some fun. I don't know. I really thought this was like the Oscars. I was adding in comedy. Like it was so fun. We booked an artist that was newly signed to Epic at the time, and which was a big deal because like he was in the news for like his big deal and like all this stuff. So it was so fun. We packed it out. We had people from the school, but we also had people who came in from the city. I think we had DJ Sus One, DJ. So it was just a thing. And we just had so much fun. But again, I learned also how to structure a team around me as well, because it was not all me. I'm one person. I could do a lot, but we needed to put people in place from production to, the actual functions. We had to have people who could do crowd control. We had to have security. We had to have, even working with the theater in my school and working with the tech team and like rehearsals, and it was so much. But I learned how to put a show together from A to Z, and it was successful. It was a highlight, and moving forward, it's helped me for sure be able to put together multiple events, shows. I may have an artist that I'm doing a release party or a release event for who wants to add a live aspect. So I know all of that takes, whether it's indoor or outdoor. It's just helped so much. And so I always tell people, don't underestimate small beginnings. You may be thinking that you're doing something small just from where you're seated, but I promise you, everything that you've done will come full circle at some point. And then you're like, wow, because you're looking around and people are like, oh, we don't know how to do this. But you're like, oh, well, I know how to do it because I've done it before. And, it's great to be able to learn where the stakes are not too high. Because, jumping right into production for like a signed artist would have been crazy. I'd probably been too nervous to even think that I could do it. But, again, all these preliminary opportunities, they really set me up to be able to like do almost anything.
Wow.
I'd say.
Love that. And again, shout out to Five Towns. I've been there a few times. And
shout out to Five Towns.
Yeah, I love it. So what drew you to writing for the R&B blog Singers Room?
Yeah, so at the time, wow, we're going way back. Okay, so Singers Room, this is so funny, Emily, because most people have no idea that I did that either. So I was interning for Sony and I was interviewing for jobs there. I always like to mention this too, because I was interviewing for jobs because I did great at my internship, but I also formed a good relationship with H.E.R. as well. And so between them and my supervisor in my internship, they had started to send me on interviews in the building, because RCA didn't have anything at the time for me. And so they were like, but you're great. We want to help you kick your career off. I think, again, if you're in the room, be in the room, talk to everyone in the room. If you don't know someone in the room, ask someone you do know to introduce you to this person. Like, tell people what you want. I was very expressive about the fact that I wanted a job, right? That I wasn't just sitting there hanging around because I thought it was cool in here. Like, I wanted to work. And so that being said, I'm interviewing and I'm just a plan A through Z kind of person. And so I was thinking about other things in music that I maybe was interested in doing. I love music. I love going to shows. I'm actually an excellent writer. I didn't end up pursuing journalism in any way, shape, or form, but I have a really pretty good pen on me. And I don't remember how. I think it really was just, I also was the person who was at everything. I was going to shows, I was going to panels, I was going to regular happy hours. I was with somebody's birthday. I was going, like, I was shaking hands, kissing babies. I was outside, right? And somewhere along the lines, I met the CEO of Singers Room, and yeah, we just got to talking. I'll never forget. I think the interview I had with him, I actually was at my internship. I had to like step away to talk to him on the phone, like somewhere in the building. I did that a lot too, but I went to talk to him somewhere in the building, and he was just kind of like, well, I would love to have you write for Singers Room. And in the same, I think around the same time, I got my job at Columbia, and he was just kind of like, well, if it's not a hindrance to you, it's not a hindrance to me. If you want to still do this, even, as you build out, your time at the label, cool. Essentially, it ended up being a little too much for me. And so I decided to like put that down, but they were great. I was able to go to shows for free, and then also meet the artists backstage, interview them, ask them questions. I think this was helpful too, because I think a lot of people are intimidated by artists, but they're just people who have a really amazing, difficult, often, but creative job. And so I was able to see them in different elements, see them going from being on the stage to being backstage and kind of being like, whew, right? And, you know, being personable, asking them questions, seeing, you know, how that goes. And it was great. It was great. It was a good time. And yeah, I was also able to learn more about how that works, right? Booking artists for shows, promotion, you know, managers, how they move, and, you know, artist moods. And it was great. I definitely, it was an experience that I always appreciate.
I love it. So you started as an intern at Sony Music about a decade ago, working your way up to assistant to
Woo.
senior vice president of finance and operations slash chief financial officer assistant. Tell us about this, and then landing a marketing position. So tell us about this journey.
Yeah. So the internship was at RCA in marketing, and we got to work on so much stuff. I got to help. It was crazy. Like, I got to help with the rebrand of artists like Jazmine Sullivan. I got to work on like Elverna at the time. I learned quickly. So my supervisor at the time, shout out to John, he was giving me work. I was doing artist one sheets. I was like doing calendars. You know, we got to meet with some of the amazing executives that were there. We got to present things and ideas. Um, some of them they loved, right? And, you know, quickly they were like, you're the idea girl. Yeah, we want to talk to her. Some of the ideas they didn't get right away. I'll never forget. So Vine had first come out back then, right? And I literally put together, I might still have the presentation somewhere in like my files, but I printed it out, like the screen grabs of it, everything. I put together this thing because I was like, this is crazy. Vine was really the first time that I saw of where fans could get the first look into our artist's day to day, right? This is before Instagram stories. This is before TikTok. This is before all that stuff, right? And so before that, it was just we saw artists in press, on TV, in music videos, maybe a specialty show that MTV was doing or VH1 was doing, and that was it, right? There was no real way to know anything else about your favorite artist. Vine comes out and Wiz Khalifa is on there. And I'm like, and he's like showing us all this stuff, his day to day, you know, Wiz. He showed us him smoking, whatever. But I'm like, this is crazy. And I was like, I feel like this is where artists are going. This is where music is going. I swear to you, this is all laid out. They didn't get it, but nobody really got it at the time. So I didn't take it like personally. But that's why I say to people who are interning, still present it, because you might be early, you might be ahead, you might be presenting something that they don't understand at first, but they'll remember later when it's like, oh my God, we got to get all our artists on this thing. And Vine didn't end up necessarily being the thing, but Snapchat came, Instagram stories came, and then it just became a thing. It funneled into that. So these are the types of things I'm doing at RCA as an intern, right? Lots of fun, lots of work. I'm also positioned at the front desk. So when you get off the elevator, I have to talk to everyone, artists, executives, managers. So I'm learning a lot about who's who, again, getting that one-on-one personability. I'm doing phones. It's a great time, right? And then I break my ankle 3 weeks before graduation, and I'm devastated because they had already told me that I could intern for the summer, which is great because I can try to get a job, right? And so I'm devastated. They're like, well, we really like you. So whenever you get yourself in something functional, like a cam boot or, you know, a crutch, something, come back. I'm like, yes. So I go back and I'm in a cam boot and I am like hustling up and down the hallways. They're like, can you sit down? I'm like, no. Now in my career, whenever I feel like I'm getting like stagnant or like I'm not working hard enough, I try to go back to that girl because she was hungry and she stopped at nothing, like broken ankle. She's like, I'm getting to work. And so that ethic is something that I take with me now. But fast forward, I land a job at Columbia, which is interesting because I'm a marketing girl, right? So the first thing, shout out to Mario, incredible H.E.R executive to this day. He was like, I got something for you. I think it's an amazing fit. He was like, I know you're going to think this is crazy when I tell you the position, but try to trust me. I'm like, Mario, what is this? Right. And so he's like, it's working with the chief financial officer of Columbia Records. And I'm like, finance? I'm like, Mario, I don't even like math. I'm like, I went to 5 times for a reason. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, Junae, but let me explain it to you. So he's like, it's a bit different. He said, first of all, it's finance and operations. He said, secondly, the way it works over at this particular label, their finance department is also like a marketing strategy department. And so ideally, they're working really heavily on not only like do the creative ideas make sense, but how much are we spending and how do we budget properly for said marketing. Right. And so I was like, okay, that sounds interesting, I guess. Right. And so I ended up meeting with my who would soon to be boss, Steve Russo, who's now like had one of the heads of the whole Sony music, right? Incredible guy, just so like a wealth of knowledge when it comes to music and when it comes to people too, I'd say. And so in our first interview, yeah, he was just kind of like, I think you're really bright and I think you're gonna be great in this business, this industry, and I want you to start here. And that's also when we had the conversation where I mentioned great ideas come from anywhere. That was that conversation as well. We talked about so much. This is also when Spotify is just being introduced, like kind of like very heavily. So labels are figuring out that. So I really came in at a good time. And I was really able to learn and see things from both sides. Being at Columbia was great because, again, I'm working with the finance strategy team that's overseeing the marketing budgets. Everyone in the building has to come to us to get anything done. So I know everything that's going on from A&R to marketing to digital to touring department, like publicity, everyone. On the operations side, I learned how to run a music company because there was nothing that didn't come past my desk. My boss would not even look at it if it didn't touch my hands first and if I didn't review it. And at first I was like, well, why is he doing that? But then I was like, oh, he wants me to learn how this works. And so I was in everything from like record deals and to to splits to like everything. Like I've seen it all. Um, and Columbia has some really big artists, right? Like we're talking like Beyonce, Calvin Harris, we're talking Barbara Streisand for peak's sake. Like it's everybody. J. Cole, which is my favorite rapper in the world. So I'm like working on all this stuff and it was such a whirlwind. But it was excellent. I'm able to work with top executives like a Rob Stringer. I'm able to put together reports for the entire, Sony music. And like, so I know everyone's market share and what's going on with that. And so it's crazy, I think, in hindsight, especially me having been so young at the time, but it was invaluable. And outside of just what I learned on the music and the marketing side, because I'll turn a budget on its head in like 3 minutes right now. Like you can give me anything, but I'm also a stickler about the numbers too. Like every dollar, every penny counts, how to move it around, the time frame you need to move money around. Like I learned all those things, and I think it's made me an incredible marketer, and one that is able to work across budgets depending on what they are, which I know we're going to get into. But yeah, so that was great at Columbia. And then here comes RCA knocking, like, hey, we got something. And at the time, Columbia didn't have, they had like urban, quote unquote. So they had like rap and R&B, but they didn't have a lot of it. They have such a diverse roster in that way, and I really wanted experience or more experience working in rap and R&B. Excuse me. And so it was a tough decision. Columbia was trying to get me to stay, and I loved Columbia. I really did. So it really was just a personal career decision that I made. And again, being so young, such a big decision to make, right? But I think I made the right decision. And yeah, I went downstairs and back downstairs. And I was able to work on some incredible artists. I got to work on, Chris Brown. I got to work on the early developments of H.E.R. I got to work on, Usher, Jazmine. I got to work on Aretha Franklin. Like I got to work with Charlie Wilson, got to work with Anthony Hamilton. It was great. And the people that I worked under have been doing this for so long. Like they're responsible for people like D'Angelo and Brandy and TLC. And so just being able to learn from them, I also think was invaluable. And then being able to work on artists in real time. And then also even being from Harlem, being able to work on the entire ASAP mob, right? Having like ASAP Rocky and ASAP Ferg as my priorities. Like this is fun. It's a lot of work. And I always like to remind people of that. Like music business, put the business in front because this is work. It is a very fun job and it's a very exciting industry to work in, but it's work. I think sometimes people get a little enamored by the glitz and glamour pieces and they get a bit of a culture shock when they're like, oh, dang, this is a real job. Yes, it's a job with deadlines, with things, bottom lines to meet. And I think it's even more intense than other industries because there's a person behind there, right? So if you mess something up or you don't do your due diligence, you're not just messing up a report. You're like messing with like an artist's livelihood. And so, I like to remind people of that. But yeah, incredible experiences. I did a lot of album release events and album listenings internally and externally at RCA as well. I like to say that's part of why I'm so good at those too. We would put it together and make it work, make it happen. And again, it was one of those things where I just learned what was important and necessary in marketing to take a project from A to Z, how much it costs, how to develop artists. I think RCA still to this day is a very artist development label. And so I'm working on legacy artists, but I'm also working on artists that are brand new. Yeah. And like, we need to figure out who the audience is and like how to translate them to them properly, how to maintain their artistry, but elevate their artistry and all these different things. And so again, marketing is also the department where everybody wants to talk to you. I say it's the fire department. Everybody needs something. Everybody wants something and it's all urgent to them. So it's also, again, working with all these different areas too, I think has helped me tremendously in my career across the board.
Wow, just incredible. So what prompted your move to Atlanta?
Yeah, so Atlanta, my dad's side of the family has actually lived here for like over 20 years. So I've been coming here since I was since I was a teenager. Actually, around the time I started interning in music was when that's crazy. Wow. Yes, I started coming to Atlanta. I get to Atlanta and the same 7 songs are playing on the radio. And they're all hits. It was a lot of Young Money at the time. Lloyd was in there mixed up, but I just remember the energy of the city. It's a very creative musical type of place. And especially back then, now too, but I think I just remember being 16 in Atlanta and never forgetting it. And so then I would go back and forth as an adult, especially once I started the agency and I'm producing events and parties as a part of like A3C Festival and all these different things. I networked a lot over the years in Atlanta. And so I wanted to change. I've been in New York my entire life, and anybody who's from New York knows what that feels like, right? It's like my whole life. And I think I just wanted kind of a bit of a change. Yeah. I had planned to actually move early 2020, but then COVID happened. And I stayed in New York, of course, with my mom and my family that's in New York, because we didn't know what was happening, right, with the world. I was like, well, I'm gonna just stay right here. And so kind of halfway through, when we were at least able to like go to the park and social distance, I was like, I think I'm gonna make the move. And it was actually an incredible move for Brown to Perfection. We're able to be on the ground here, but we also do go back and forth a lot, back home to New York. We bounce over to LA. But I think Atlanta for me is great because I do have the balance of like hustle and bustle when I want to. And when I'm just kind of in my house, just working and relaxing, I have that too. But it's also a very key place for music right now. Yeah. I always tell people, whether it's management, executives, labels, whoever, you can't skip Atlanta. Like, of course, you still have to do New York, Mecca, right? You still have to do LA, necessary, big, huge part. But Atlanta is like a sweet spot that you don't want to miss because so much culturally, like, South got something to say. Literally, like there is a big piece of what moves and doesn't move in music that happens right here. So
Yeah, I totally agree. So you mentioned Brown to Perfection Agency. Tell us about launching it, and when did you start to become known as the Beyonce of marketing? And actually, before I let you answer, like your story just defines like work ethic to me, and like obviously Beyonce is like a goddess and the ultimate, but it's like she worked so hard, and I think we know that. But when I was an intern at MTV a million years ago, I had to like take time code on a Beyonce documentary. I'm just like, she works so hard. Oh my gosh. So anyway, back to my question. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the original
Yeah,
question?
sorry. So tell us about launching Brown to Perfection Agency, and when did you start to become
Yeah.
known as the Beyonce of marketing?
So funny enough, today's the 12th. 5 days ago, we turned 7. I launched Brown to Perfection somewhere around June 7th, 2016. And so the last thing we were talking about was me working at RCA, right, at the label. Great experience, but I also learned there that I'm not a desk kind of girl. I'm very hands-on. I like to be in the field. I like to get my hands dirty. I want to be on site. I like to do the creative stuff. I'm a creative girl. And what happened at RCA is what happens at a lot of companies in general, but definitely can happen in music as well. Sometimes there's a structural change that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with someone like me, but it affects the work load and everything. So if something happens at an executive level, you know, the work still has to get done. So at this point, I'm doing like, I think I had like 33 projects. And so that's insane, right? And it just didn't allow me room to be the idea girl, to be creative, to have fun with the marketing, we just had to get it done. And as a true creative through and through, I think you learn to balance the fact that this is work and you have to do work. But if the scale tips too far over, I become extremely miserable. And that's kind of where it was at. And so it was kind of like a mutual thing where like, we know we hired you to be creative, but there's no room for you to do that right now. Me being like, yeah, and I can't do whatever this is right now like this. But in the meantime, as a true creative as well, I'm interviewing for other jobs. I'm doing that, other jobs in music, but I'm also creating this website because I needed to do something. I just was like, I can't do no more paper invoices. I don't want to hear about it, calendars. I want to do something fun. So I'm like, okay, blogs were big at the time, right? And so I'm like, I want to create a website where basically it helps creatives, right? Artists, business owners, other creatives of all kinds get their marketing together. So it's funny around this conversation. There were so many things that I did at the label that were pretty simple and didn't cost anything for the most part. That went a long way with our artists. And I was like, well, damn, if more people knew that this is what they needed to do, they'd probably be at least a little bit further, right? And at the time, I'm still very much in touch with the indie side of music in the city. I'm still running around. I'm still at every event. I'm still doing all these things. I know I'm creative, so I know nothing but creative people, and I'm learning more about their needs and then also what's possible without having to reach such a major level. The in-between space that we kind of have now in the indie space was not something that existed back then, like it is now. Like now you can own your entire career, you can do all these incredible things without signing to a major label company or having a major label situation. It just wasn't like that back then. So everybody was pretty much between the space of like super indie or you're on, right? And trying to figure it out in between. So I think Brown to Perfection is going to be a website, right? I come up with the name, I come up with the tabs for the website, all this stuff, right? At the same time, I'm transitioning out of RCA. I'm interviewing for jobs, and I'm at the final interview at this really reputable music company, and there was a mix-up where like someone on the West Coast had interviewed someone and promised them the job. The East Coast people are angry with them because it was something contractual that they messed up. And so the HR person's like, hey, we're trying to fix it. But I'm a very spiritual person, and I have been praying about what I should do, right? Like, should I take this job or should I do something different? Because at the label, I'm also processing invoices for independent marketers and publicists and companies that we would utilize. And I'm doing the calculations. And I'm like, well, they got to be making a decent amount. We're processing all these invoices. I was like, and they don't have to sit here all day in this cubicle, right? And so I was like, that sounds fun, right? I would talk to some of them on the phone. I'm like, they're having a good time. I could do that. And I always had a dream to start my own marketing and management agency, but I thought it would be like my passion project at like 45 years old. I didn't, climb the major label ladder. And then it's like Junae Brown launches, right? That was my vision. Where I messed up at was I actually put on my vision board, the last one I made, my senior year in college, I had put literally like the internship and then the internship turning into a job. And then I had just written the management firm and marketing firm thing on there just to have it. And this was like a 3-4 year plan thing. And I'm like, like I say, vision boards work. So that's how it ended up happening. But long story short, I was like, God, all right, well, if I'm supposed to take this job and keep climbing the industry ladder, give me the job. I'll take it. If I'm not, don't give me the job and I'm going to start this company. I'm going to take that as like my green light. Never heard of this type of H.R. debacle in my life, but it happened and they were trying to fix it. And I was like, honestly, I'm okay. This is my rainbow in the sky. I'm good. And I started the company. I just started the company and I realized that what I wanted to do with the site was what I wanted to do as a company. I wanted to help people bring their ideas to life, help people get their careers together. It's interesting that after 7 years, the premise of the company at the root level has not really changed. Everyone that comes to us, I think now we work more high level, right? We work with big brands and we work with, artists that are typically like right before the superstar status. So they're kind of in the middle a lot of times. And we work on, a bunch of different projects. We are the intersection between, music and corporate and culture. I like to say we're the authentic bridge between that, right? Because after being, as doing my career trajectory, I know what matters at the corporate level for music and culture and entertainment and tech. And I know what matters on the cultural level too, and what's important to the culture, to the fans, to the audience, to the artists, to the creatives. And I just, we create that beautiful marriage in the middle so that everybody's bottom line is authentically, represented and achieved. And so, yeah, that was how I started the company. We've grown so much since I've started it. We've gone through so many different phases and levels and things. It's incredible. I'm so grateful to be able to say we've turned 7. I've worked with some incredible brands, companies, artists. I like to say we're an impact company first. And so I've been able to also just insert impact and philanthropic things and just things that matter beyond just, entertainment, I think. And that's something that we're really proud of. Like, you mentioned I employ like strictly people of color, predominantly women of color. That's something I'm proud of as well because I know how long sometimes it can take for us to climb up the ladder. I think things have gotten a lot better over the years, for sure, over the past, decade or so. But it's still sometimes a lot. And then to get hands-on experience. Yeah. That's the other thing too. I was very lucky and blessed to be able to get such hands-on experience, but I know that that's not the norm. I have plenty of peers who it took them so long to be able to really get their hands in and on things just because there's a company structure and that's just how things go. And so I like to afford the opportunity for people as well to kind of really build their portfolios, whether you stay with us or not. I want you to get that real time experience of actually marketing something, not just kind of being next to it as it happens, to be able to see it, which is valuable too, but it's nothing like being hands-on. So
yeah, wow,
that's us.
So cool. Okay,
you.
so now we're gonna get into the vegetarian meat of this episode, how to market with or without a budget. Even though I learned so much listening to your background and story, so I'm sure everyone else did too. And it, you know, if you heard at the beginning, we're taking artists through the entire modern music industry, the entire release cycle. So from recording to release, from creation to distribution. So the previous episode was on distribution. We did a pre-recording marketing foundation episode in episode 2. So they should have their marketing platform set up, should have their social media in place, all that good stuff. But now the release is out, okay? So now it's distributed. But how can artists handle FOMO, fear of missing out, and find balance in the digital era?
Ooh, I love this question so much. You have no idea. So one thing about the internet, it's like that quote, life goes on, the internet goes on too. Every day, every minute of the day, there's going to be something else to look at, right? New York City, prime example. People are walking back and forth. Somebody's running. Somebody's on a bike. There's a taxi. There's a bus. There's a train. There's a plane. There's a pigeon. There might be a rat. There's a stroller. There's noise. There's honking. There's music. There's so much stuff going on in New York, right? But if you have to get to work, you got to figure out how to get where you got to go. You can't be so distracted by everything that's happening left or right, because it's going to happen whether you stand still and watch it or whether you keep walking and catch your bus, train, plane, car to work, right? The internet is no different. So I know I can understand why an artist would get FOMO, because it looks like everyone is doing things and you're sitting there trying to get your thing right, and you have to take your time, or it's taking you a long time for pieces to come together. But I think it's better to get it done right, and make it something that lasts and something that is impactful, especially if you're independent. Every dollar, nickel, penny, moment counts, right? And so you do want to, don't overthink it, but you do want to make it worthwhile. And, you know, something that's the hot topic today won't be tomorrow, because there'll be a new hot topic, right? So it's kind of like, you allowing yourself to experience FOMO is kind of just a distraction in the sense, because you should be so excited about what you're doing that you can't wait to be the thing that someone else has FOMO about. Like, that's, I think, where your focus should lie. Is like, you know what? Oh, that's super dope. Let me get back to work. Let me get back to tunnel vision, because I want to be the thing that everybody stops, that makes people stop scrolling. Like, that should be your goal, is to, how do I make people stop scrolling? And how do I do it in a way that's authentic to me, that can help push this incredible music that I've spent so much time, effort, maybe money putting together and creating. And I have this thing that's like, you know, everybody kind of wants a viral moment, but they're just moments. If there's nothing else to create that longevity beyond the moment, then that's all it is. And it may be great for a day. I give you 3 max, 72. There's like a 72-hour window for virality. And that's insane, right? Because there's so much online, but that's pretty much all you get. And so if you didn't create anything to extend that visibility, it doesn't mean much. I mean, think about all the viral moments that have happened. Like, you have to have something else attached to it, enough even for an entity to say, hey, this person is so dope. Let me see how we can make something work out of this. Or you see it all the time. You know, people kind of have mixed feelings about artists that get discovered on like TikTok and stuff like that. But the ones who have gotten like signed and like are still working, they already kind of had an artist infrastructure for themselves. They have music, they had personality, they had other things. This is just the one thing that caught on, right? And so I think, again, you should be focused on quality and consistency. And if you do that, then there's no reason for you to really have FOMO, because you're a part of the ecosystem. You're just waiting for your, you know, for your moment, for your shot. And your moment may be a big viral moment, or it may be a combination, or a culmination, I should say, of, you know, a bunch of smaller moments that people can, like, you know, now understand, like something that's really cohesive. And like, sometimes it's that, and you're like, damn, yeah, this person's been working, like they've been putting out stuff, they've been consistent. And now there's like this really high level thing that's incredible, but it's like, it's no stopping you at that point, because it's a snowball effect, versus like, you know, just having like a couple of snowflakes at the right moment, like, oh, it's snowing, versus like, oh, avalanche. Like you want, you want it to be something that lasts. And so I think that's the way to get over FOMO, and also understanding that everything you're seeing in real time was a process.
Yeah.
The biggest artist in the world has a process. There is no one waking up and just putting stuff out and being perfect.
Yeah.
And it just hitting. There is so much that happens behind the scenes, especially for artists that are signed or have some sort of situation or partnership or team. There's so much. There are so many people working so hard for the one moment you're having FOMO about. So much goes into a 1 minute clip for you to have FOMO about. And it's like, we don't even have enough time to go through how much it takes for your favorite artist to get one thing done, to get a photo shoot done, to get a partnership deal done, to put out an album. Most of the time, by the time you're seeing something, this could be something that's worked on from anywhere from like at shortest 3 months, at longest 3 years. You just don't know. And another thing I try to tell artists is, while you're experiencing FOMO, everything's only owed to you, right? You put it out today, it's brand spanking new to the audience, right? Like, you're the only one that knows. And I know that can be daunting, because especially as creatives, you're ready to move on. You're like, all right, I've been working on this for 6 months, a year, great, but I have a bunch of other stuff I want to put out, I want to see. I'm in a different place right now. But the truth is that the audience has no idea. If you don't tell them it's coming, they don't know. If you don't put it out, it doesn't exist. So it's like, you're also fearing of missing out, thinking you're behind, but you're not behind. You're actually very timely. You're actually extremely timely. And again, just know that there's nothing happening overnight. And not just with music, but even other stuff. I know people in other creative spaces have the same sort of FOMO with like influencers and media personalities and even executives and people. And it's like, even me, by the time you see a photo shoot, I put out photo shoots. I'm actually about to do one, literally, watch me in a few days. I'm going to put out photo shoots from a photo shoot I did last year. And I'm like, and people are going to be like, oh my God, it's so great. And they're probably going to think like, last week I went and did. No, it's everything. If you're smart with your brand, you're going to do things as far as possible, which also frees you up to be prepared. You don't want to be scrambling to figure out, what do I want to post for content today? Oh God, I got to post on Instagram. Oh man, how do I engage these people on Twitter? Ooh, how do we extend the shelf life of this project? Like, you want to have that stuff already laid out, so that you give yourself wiggle room. You may wake up tomorrow and not feel like creating, and that's okay, because you're human. But if you have a folder full of photos, full of video content, full of, whatever else, things that you've been working on, then you can just press play and go, and then go about your day, go about your creative day, because creatives need time to sit around and do nothing, right? So this could be your nothing day. And then you also don't have to experience that constant feel of needing to like always be on. I got to do this, I got to do that. It's very anxiety inducing, right? Like, you want to give yourself the space. And again, you're seeing everybody. It seems everybody's so perfect, everybody's so consistent, everybody's doing these things, but they're taking time like you're taking time. You just got to get through your time and then be consistent, right? Don't stop after that. Like, you have to constantly be having that assembly line for yourself, where you're, your future you is thinking about your current you, right? And so I think that's a very long answer to how to avoid FOMO. I wanted to give an in-depth answer to that, because that is something that so many artists experience. And I also want artists to know that you're not the only one. Again, your favorite artist is feeling the same way when they want to put out something that they believe in and care about too.
I love it. And I often advise artists, like, whether you are like super into all this marketing and industry stuff, or you can't stand it, you should set aside an hour a business day to focus on your social media and responding to emails. Because if you love it, you can get so sucked in and addicted and go to tons of industry things and like be on social media all day, that you're losing sense of who you are as an artist and why you're doing this. And if you loathe it, you really do have to respond to your emails, and you have to engage with your fans. So no matter what, I would say an hour a business day.
I agree. And I think that's like a great balanced minimum of like an hour a day where, like you said, you're not overly consumed
Yeah.
with it, because there is such thing as, and honestly, a lot of times it's where the FOMO comes from. It's like you're too much
Yeah.
on social media versus being the thing that's in the social media,
Yeah.
right? And so you have to remember to take a step back and like less watching, more creating, right? Like I won't ever say don't be on it, because you do need to know what's
Right.
going on and you can get inspiration and all these kinds of things. But once you get to the point where it's kind of making you miserable and feel like you're incapable or you're not doing enough, you got to set that boundary, and really remember what makes you great and amazing and why you deserve to be, getting the same looks and visibility as the people that you're watching too.
Yeah. And if you truly can't handle the FOMO, because again, I totally agree with you. Focus on your own green grass. But if you truly can't handle it, reach out. You can DM these folks. Like you can contact them, and like you alluded to, like maybe they're having FOMO about what you have going on. So now you can set up a coffee, you can set up a Zoom. That's not something we necessarily could do with everyone like 20 years ago.
100%. And like use, like I think artists too sometimes get in ego mode where like again they want to look perfect, so they don't want to talk to other artists even about, or other creatives about what they're dealing with. But like your peers will be your greatest tool. Like again, everybody wants to network across, right? Even if it's someone that is not an artist, but they're an up and coming executive or, creative or whatever field it is, or manager, or whatever it is, talk to your peers. Like there's so much that I've learned over the years that have come from my peers. Like when I look left and right now, it's so incredible, but it's the same people who were in the trenches with me.
Yeah.
The same people who we were like standing online trying to get into this open bar event so that we could hopefully maybe meet one person to give us an opportunity. These are the people that are VPs, vice presidents, managers of, Grammy Award winning artists, like, and producers, and owners of their own companies and platforms, movers, shakers. Like we've become the people that people are dying to get advice from and talk to and meet with. And it's like, you know, look to your left and to your right. Like more than likely, whatever you're going through, they can either help or have some sort of solution, an alternative perspective, or they're at least, the very least, going through it too. And so you know that you're not alone in this. It is a journey. Like there is nothing about artistry and creativity that is linear, and there's nothing about it that's quick and easy.
Yeah.
Even when it looks like someone took the elevator instead of the stairs, there's typically years of toiling, work, investing, and everything that went into leading up to what looks like a quick opportunity to you. I know everything based off of like perspective, and it's a lot of smoke and mirrors though. Like there's just always so much more to the story. So you gotta try to be mindful of all of that. And when people say that, believe them. Like I think the part of interviews where people are like, I had to work, I gave up everything for this, or I worked so hard for this, or I came from nothing to this. I think people gloss over that because they just want to hear the glory. Yeah. But you can learn so much just from hearing people's tenacity, right? And there's the infamous Jay-Z quote, the most incredible thing we did was we didn't give up. That is a real thing. And so also I try to tell artists and creatives, like, applaud yourself if you if you're getting up and doing it every day, because like that's no small feat. It's not in this world.
Absolutely. So you touched on this, but how early should an artist reach out in advance of their release if they want to work with you and or a publicist?
So I have an interesting answer for this. My favorite artists reach out like 3 months before, at least. But someone like me, if you give me 6 weeks, we can make it happen. But I'm always very transparent. And depending on where the artist is in their career, the more time, the better, right? Because the first thing someone like me and anyone who really does the job properly is going to do is there's going to have to be time to assess where you are and then come up with a strategy for how to lay the playing field for your release. So it's not just like, hey, what are these cool things we're going to do for your release? It's also like, is your audience and your platform, like, are you primed for this? Because you don't want to just throw things at the wall and hope they stick. You want to actually have a better shot at them landing. And a lot of times that takes social media audits. It takes, like, hey, what are the other systems and things and platforms you have in place, and are they efficient, right? Do you have a functioning, and this can vary across artists, but things like having a website, having an email list or a text message list set up. You know, what are your channels? Is your YouTube set up properly? Are we going to run ads? Are those, you know, is even just your social media prime? Maybe we need to warm up your socials with some posts so that the first post is not like, hey, I haven't dropped music in a year and a half, but hey, I'm here. Like, it might work, probably won't, right? Like, if you're, that doesn't work for people with millions of fans already, right? Depending on the artist. So I say 3 months is a good amount of time. I think 3 months is great too, because then you can get your budget together, right? A lot of times artists come in the door thinking that they know how much stuff is going to cost, and then they are pleasantly or unpleasantly surprised, right, about what it will actually take. And so I think 3 months gives just enough time to figure out where you are, where we want to go, and what it's going to take. Not just monetarily, but even what it's going to take from you as an artist, from your team, you know, what that, all that stuff looks like. What does it look like post release? Because I'm the type of person too, I create a rollout that keeps rolling out, right? Especially for an emerging artist. You don't want to, after you drop the project, that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever day you're doing, that's it, we're done, we're finished. Ta-da, right? Like, go listen. Like, no, you have to have stuff. You got to keep working that thing. You got to keep working the single. You got to keep working the whole project. You want to have, you know, additional press, content opportunities, things to engage your community and your fans and your audience. Like, you want to have all that stuff ready. Even if you plan to put out more music almost immediately after, like, you want things to be cohesive and a plan, so that, again, you're not scrambling, and so that you can measure effectively, right? A lot of times, if I get a 3 month lead, I can also just see how certain things do, especially if we're mostly activating on social media. It's like, what does your audience like? What do they not like so much? What can we perfect? What can we tweak? What can we just cut out, period, and just not do anymore because they don't work? Even if you like it, hey, it doesn't really work like that. And so there's just so many things. Now, again, 6 week lead, I can put together an excellent rollout for you, but there's going to be limitations, right? Because you only gave us 6 weeks. And 6 weeks is generous, because artists will come in 2 weeks. Like, hey, yeah, I want to put this out in 2 weeks. Can you create a miracle? And we can do as close to a miracle as, you know, we can, but you're really selling yourself short. Like, again, going back to how crowded the marketplace is and how saturated things are, the issue is not that it's saturated. The issue is that you're not giving yourself a fighting chance to stand out in a saturated market when you don't give yourself enough time to put together a marketing plan that's more extensive, makes more sense, more tailored to you. Like, if you give me a 6 week lead, we're probably going to be able to do, like, the basic things that everyone does, right? That we see artists do. And we may not have enough time or limited time to really throw some razzle dazzle on there. I mean, we can, again, but it's just like anything else in life, right? Like, if you have 2 hours to study for a test versus 2 weeks to study for a test, you're probably going to do a lot better, or at least feel more confident, right, with that 2 weeks than the 2 hours before, kind of thing. So that's the concept. Just like anything else, it's all strategy. I'm not like a plug and play kind of person when it comes to marketing. I think it cheapens the art so much to not tailor the strategy to the artist and to the artist audience as well. Like, I mean, let's use big artists. We're not going to market Beyonce the same way we market ASAP Rocky. Like, we're not, it doesn't make sense. Like, there are some staple things that matter right now in the industry and in the market that, you know, yeah, we'll check off those boxes, but I'm approaching the strategy completely different. And I think that's how people should approach artists in general, even if they're in a similar genre, lane, all that, like, completely different. There is no one size fits all, excuse me, to me when it comes to marketing.
So if I had a budget, and this is the part we're talking about, the with a budget, and then we're going to get to without a budget, I would honestly hire you and your team. But I do want to touch on PR rates for a second, which is different from what Junae does. So, you know, a lot of times I meet with young managers or artists that are like, yeah, I want to get a publicist. And I'm like, well, why? Like, what's the goal here? And we'll get into that in a second, but you're gonna get quotes anywhere in like in the range of like $3,500, $5,000 a month, if not more. Ask for like $1,500 or $1,000 a month. And because also, we'll talk about this more in a second, like the return on investment with PR is not what it was like in the pre-digital era. I mean, we might as well, talk.
Go for it.
Yeah, talk about PR. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
This is a really important topic too, because, you know, we do, with our company, we do have like a publicity leg where we, you know, can do certain things. But I will say like probably top 10 questions or things that we've gotten over the years is people being confused about whether they need PR or they need marketing, or which one to get first, and like all these different things. And I have so many incredible friends in PR, and they will tell you, Junae, they need to talk to you first. Because if you don't have like your brand story and your marketing and who the audience is and all that stuff together, they don't have anything to pitch. Not much. The thing about PR and publicity is it's not just, hey, this person dropped this project. What about it is special? What about you is special? Like, they have to be able to really paint the picture to the platforms that they're pitching to. And then you have to consider the fact that all the platforms have their own idea of like things they want to be promoting and talking about, and they want their writers to be producing things about. And then of course, PR also dips into things like television and media and content. Like, we have these different pillars now, but it's the same thing, where it's like, it's not just, hey, this person is doing a thing. Sure, put them on TV. Sure, give them an article. Sure, do this. Like, no, there's so much else that goes into that. And if you don't already have a lot of the other pieces together, the pitches will fall flat, or they can't even really craft a good pitch for you. It'll be very like, okay, this person put out music. You know how many people put out music in a day? Like, that's not, and I always tell people, like, think about what it takes for you to buy into something. Like, a lot. Like, it takes a lot for you to be interested in something, for there to be an angle or a story. And so, you know, a lot of times you can see people too who maybe do have press and they don't have anything else. And once them articles, you got some SEO, and that's great if someone is Googling you. But the average fan is looking to see what you have going on social media, what you have going on streaming platforms, want to see, might find you from some content. They might find you because you sat down with someone and told your story, or you're presenting your story in a cool, unique way. Like, there's so many other things that go into that. And truthfully, platforms, publications, and all that, they want to write about, create content with and around people who have already been showing that they have a story, showing that they're doing something interesting and fun and cool and of quality. Like, that usually comes after. I mean, more than half the time, if you really do something incredible, the press comes to you.
Yes.
Publicists are not. Like, you know, that's just kind of how it goes. And so, yeah. And then again, like you mentioned, PR costs, right? And so you want to good actual PR. You know, you also want to be careful about the people who make promises of like, you pay me this, I guarantee you this placement or this spot, because, you know, I've never, you know, everybody hustle how you hustle. But the truth is, though, how much impact are you getting from this pay to play situation? Like, you might be getting something, but you might not be. And so actual publicists who do a lot more organic pitching and make sure that the publications and the platforms understand who you are as an artist and what this whole project, song, event, anything is about, yes, they cost. They do a hard job. And so you want to think about the fact of, you know, where your budget is going, and do you feel like like you said, Emily, press is not exactly the same as it once was. I think before it was such a huge necessity, and now it's more of an amplification.
Yes.
I think that's kind of where we are, especially if you're an emerging artist. There's so many other things that you need, I think, to make the press matter that you should probably be investing in first.
Yeah, it's so true. And like for me, whether it's working with artists or like at my nonprofit, I voted, press is just a tool to me. So like when I was working with developing artists and you know, if we were working with a publicist, I'd be like, you know, let's just try to land 1 or 2 links, and then I can get that to booking agents. I can get that to music supervisors. I can pitch publishing deals with it. So sure, if we pick up some fans, great. But the goal was land some links and have that as a tool. And one way to build sustainable PR for yourself is, whether you're landing press on your own or with a publicist or whatever, grab those email addresses of those journalists and put it in a Google spreadsheet. For our artists, we call that fancy friends, because then you're building your own contact database of journalists, bloggers, tastemakers that support you, and then you can reach out to those folks, you know, whether you have a publicist on or not.
Listen, relationships are so important. And they've gotten me so far. Like work ethic, top tier thing you need, but also relationships, knowing how to build them, maintain them, and relationships, not transactions, right? Not building with people or networking with people just for the sake of you think they have something that you need or want, but really actually like investing in getting to know people and, you know, just connecting organically, maybe even seeing what they need and how you can be of a help to them. Not people not just only hearing from you when you want something from them. That goes such a long way. And I think most journalists, I have so many journalist friends. Most of them are great people, great people. But you got to imagine you wanting what you want. Imagine how many other people are constantly asking. This is anyone who works in the industry. People are constantly always asking people for something. So imagine how refreshing it is when someone's just like, hey, how are you? Or, hey, I saw this thing. I thought maybe you'd be interested in. I thought maybe you like it. Or, hey, there's an event going on here, you know, that someone's doing. If you're interested, you can RSVP or anything. Happy birthday on an Instagram post. It all goes a long way. And so if you can build that relationship with journalists where you're not expecting them to do certain things, but you're just sharing things with them, you're keeping them posted and like, you know, with what you have going on, I think that goes such a long way. So when it is something that, you know, matches with, you know, what their, you know, their goals and bottom lines are right now as a platform or publication, you're a shoo-in. Like it's easy, you know, versus, or, you know, if you want to have a more extensive, larger conversation about what that looks like, you kind of have that avenue. You can at least have the contact to be able to be like, hey, do you have some time next week? I'd love to play you some of my music and just hear what you think. You know, if you love it and you have space to write about it, great. If you don't, thanks. Share it with someone you think would like it. That's it. They may even pass you on to someone else who can do it or get it done. You know, they may show up to your release event. Like all those things matter. And I know we live in an instant gratification world, but it don't work like that in music. So you really, you know, you have to take the time to, I think, you know, massage and build those different relationships.
Yeah, and you know, if you've landed some press on your own or organically, and then you are working with a publicist, be upfront with them about the press that you've landed previously.
Yes.
You really have to be upfront about communication, because it's like, I know an artist from Detroit, he was landing a lot of great local media, and then he went on to hire a publicist, and she thinks she's crushing it because she's landing all the stuff he would get anyway, and then he was super disappointed that she wasn't going beyond that. So also be clear about your goals, and if you've been landing press on your own or organically, you know, make sure they know that up front. And then also really have your, and this is going to be the same for you, I assume too, but really have your asset organization together. So don't like hire a publicist and be like, oh, now I have to get press shots, right? Like,
no, I was just about to say that. Yeah. You want to have your photos ready for them to go. A good publicist is definitely going to help you with your bio. So I don't think that's something, if you don't have a great one, I think it's okay. But definitely at least kind of know, like you said, Emily, like what your goals are,
Yeah.
where you were trying to go, not just I want to be famous, I want
Yeah.
a million followers, I want whatever, like tangible goals, right?
Yeah.
Who do you want to be? And I think artists sometimes don't think about that enough. Like who you want to be as an artist, not just the high level like fandom that you desire. And also think about the publications and things that you want to be in,
Yeah.
right? Like you said, Emily, like don't have the publicist just because they're going to do what they think is best. But if you really want to be in this publication or something else, or you have an idea of where you want to be, you can be upfront with them, then they can be upfront with you and tell you how realistic that is. And tell you what that would take to get there and the time it takes. And the last thing about PR and everything, things take time.
Yeah.
I think a lot of artists also assume that, even I'm telling you right now, the best publicist needs time to pitch you.
Yeah.
They need time to have conversations. There's a lot that goes on and goes into that kind of stuff that the artist will never see. You don't see all the emails, the phone calls. It would overwhelm you if you did, right? You don't see all the follow-ups. You don't see all those different things. You don't see that. And so I think artists sometimes get frustrated when they're like, oh, well, I'm paying this person and it's been a month and I'm not on the cover of Billboard. And it's like, even the people on the cover of Billboard, their publicists have been working on that for 6 months. And I'm like, and they're whoever they are to be on the cover of Billboard, So it's just a long game. And it's one of those things where it's not a fun conversation to have, but it's an honest one. And so I think setting realistic expectations and goals with your publicist is also important too.
Yeah. And also respectful communication, right? So, like you said, if the publicist is working you and you're emailing them every 2 seconds, if you're texting them every 2
They can't
seconds.
do their job.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
They can't do their job.
And
Not happily.
And you can also set up Google alerts for yourself so you can see any of those press hits coming in at real time. And then, like you said, then they have time to go out and do their job for you on your behalf.
Sure. For sure. And then also last thing is make sure you have something to pitch. I think sometimes artists get PR too early too. And it's like, you don't have an album out, you don't have a song, like you don't have anything for me to talk about.
Yeah.
And it's a little hard to pitch press for stuff that you did before.
Right.
Like we're in the world of the now or the upcoming. And so I think sometimes it's even that if you don't actually have an angle or a story, something for them to pitch, if you think they could just pitch you, that's sometimes difficult if you don't have a really extensive kind of rap sheet already. So again, that's why a lot of my publicist friends are like, they need to go to marketing first. Because we need to build up the story for the publicist to be able to pitch, build up the plan that the PR can help amplify.
Yeah, exactly. So we reviewed this in the previous episode, but when the time comes to release your music, you want to take care of your most hardcore and lucrative fans by sharing and announcing your release's news on your text list and on your email list, then get it up on your social media. So this is a general question, but what are some best social media practices?
I think definitely, I always like that idea of like, if you have a core community that you're engaging, like in a separate way, like texting or emails, to definitely give it to them first, or at least tease it to them first, because they're going to be the ones who champion you on social media. Some people have audiences that just, they're going to go no matter when they find out, right? But you have to be honest with yourself about, do you have that type of pulse on your audience already, on your fans already, as to where they're going to go extremely crazy, sharing, posting, and most independent artists don't have that yet. You're trying to build it. So definitely use all the bells and whistles that are at your disposal. I think some general best practices for social media is, of course, having all the assets ready and making sure they match. Right. A lot of times artists will they'll have Instagram together, but they'll forget about TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. Even if it's not your strongest platforms, you want to have the presence there, because why leave any opportunity for somebody to not hear this music, to not see that you're dropping, to not know. I think so. Yeah, definitely having your assets. I love a cool announcement, right? I love something visual. I love something that's not just dropping the artwork. Or maybe you drop the artwork first and then you follow up with something that's a little cooler that goes within the theme of the project. I think that's important. I think also kind of like Easter egging your audience. I think that's always cool, like leading them up to release, especially again, if you're an emerging artist, you got a lot of noise to break through,
Yes.
right? So you want to be doing something every day or every few days that reminds people that you're dropping this album,
Yes.
right? This EP, this song, this music video, whatever it is. So I would say that. I think definitely also creating something that's interactive for fans is always fun, right? So where something they can participate in, then you get that nice crossover, user generated content. And this could be anything. This could be a filter. It could be, um, them answering questions. This could be them reposting something for a gift or a prize pack or merch or, something like that. I love that. This kind of trails a little bit off of social media into real life, but I love seeding kids. I love like PR giftings. I love the idea of sending, and it doesn't have to be something expensive. If you can afford to create a big custom box or hire someone like Brown Perfection to put together something like that for you, but great. But if you can't and all you can do is like make custom lighters or some other item, small token item, where it clearly has like your artist name, the name of the project, maybe you include a little note card in there. Great if it's handwritten. If you're sending out a bunch, we get it printed out. But a nice note, QR code on it that links out to all your stuff. Literally, people love free stuff. I say this all the time. People love free stuff. They might not even care about what you're doing. They love free stuff. You can go ahead and DM, email people, say, hey, I'm dropping this project. I would love to send you a gift. On behalf of the project, can you send me a good address to send it to you? I've let people send me all types of stuff. People I've never spoken to, do not know. And I just thought it was so thoughtful that they did that and that they were trying to push and market something. And when I get it in the mail, what do? I post it on my Instagram story so all my followers can see it. And I tag them for free.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
it. Because thank you. I got something free in the mail. It's the same. Like you can do so many things, and then that ends up being almost like an impromptu influencer campaign for you.
Yeah.
One that you did not probably have to pay for outside of getting the item and mailing the things out. Now you have reputable people posting that they got something for you and that your album is coming out or your song is coming out. You can pull those down, snatch them, put them into a compilation video and post it as content if you want to, right? Like you can, you can make it work. And so I think those are some best practices too, is just how do we make this exist outside of just posting and going and hoping that people click and link and listen. I think making sure your bios are updated, right? And all the links are there. Make it easy. Do not make it hard for people to click. I mean, now you can even add, the links to the post in itself. You can add links to stories, utilize social media stories even too. Take people on a journey, do polls, ask questions, let them ask you questions, like go live. That's something that artists, I'm like, you should be going live really often anyway. It helps with your algorithm and it just again helps people get to know you a little better outside of you just kind of posting and going. But even that, you can bring in people who helped with the project on live as well. You get their cross promo from their audience, a producer, and a musician, the person who made your artwork. It could be literally anybody. It could be your friend that was in the studio with you when you made a certain song. Like use these tools at your disposal. Like social media is a tool, and I always tell people like it's easy to overthink it, but think about the fact that there's people that you see every day that you probably feel like are like 100 times less talented than you, but they're consistent.
Yeah.
And they're on there. And so they're getting all these looks and all this visibility and all this love, whether the product is great or not. So if you have a great product and you're not trying, you're doing a disservice to yourself. And I think with social media, the key is consistency. You can't do something one time and because it wasn't magic and because you didn't get this big response, you never do it again.
Yeah.
You got to keep at it. I don't care if one person joined the live because the next time you do it, there'll be 2 people.
Yeah.
And then there'll be 4 people. And then there'll be 18 people. And then there'll be 100 people. And then there'll be 3,000 people because you were consistent and because you kept trying and someone saw it. Like a fan a day is a real thing, whether you're a super indie artist, an emerging artist, an established artist. A fan a day. You should be doing everything that you can to promote yourself and your music every day. Ads also go a long way. But I always tell people, if you don't have a good understanding of ads, please hire someone who does. I think artists waste a lot of money on ads, and they're super shocked when I show them what we start off with
Yeah.
when we're like producing ads. Not a lot of money. The first phase of ads, especially social media ads, is all research data.
Mm.
So don't drop $500 in there and you don't even know how it's going to convert.
Yeah.
A couple hundred at best, and see, run it for a few days, run it for a week, and then see kind of like where you're doing best in. Also, use your data. Like even if you don't have access to like the larger, like as an agency, I obviously use a lot of tools and software to pull data and analytics for artists, right? But for the most part, all the platforms give it to you. Like Spotify tells you on the back end where people are listening to your music. Like Apple does the same thing. Instagram does the same thing. You can look at your insights and at least know, like, do I have mostly men following me or women following me? Are they in Chicago? Are they in New York? Are they, wow, I've never been to Los Angeles, but they love my music in Cali. So you should be then targeting ads to people from a certain, they even tell you how old they are, right? Like you have the demographics right there. And I say, like, use it to your disposal. And I know it's so much stuff to be an artist, but it's a job. So literally lay out all the pieces and all the things you need to get done, figure out what you can get done yourself, you and your team, and figure out who you need to hire out for. And I think, that is kind of how you do it. But ideally, to go back to best practices on social media, is everything being clean, creative, consistent, accessible, which is really important as well. And that just, it depends on what that means to you. Some artists like to clear their whole Instagram grid because they're getting ready to drop. I'm not mad at that. Some people, you can pin stuff to your profile. If you're on Twitter, maybe you're doing a conversation. Like, it really depends on where you thrive. Like I said, you want the promotion to live everywhere, but whatever your strongest platform is, do not try to be everything to everybody.
Yeah.
If your strongest platform is Instagram, that's where you add the most effort, the most razzle dazzle, the most interactive thing. Like, that's where you do it at. And then you let it live in other places. If you know you're really good at Twitter, then you need to be utilizing Twitter to your advantage when it comes to, promoting your music, getting your fans engaged, hosting. If you're gonna host a Twitter space, if you're gonna have a Q&A live Twitter conversation where they can tweet you and you can answer questions, like whatever those kinds of things are, I think you need to pick the platform and kind of act accordingly.
Yes, absolutely. And also, don't forget to tag anything or anyone that's taggable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tags, captions. Tagging is so easy too, because more than likely, if you tag someone, they're going to comment, they're going to share, they're going to support you. Like the artists that I've seen roll out really well, outside of it being a creative, consistent, cohesive rollout, the biggest thing that they do is they incorporate everybody that was a part of this.
Yes.
You did not produce this by yourself. And I think people really appreciate, one, when you acknowledge them as you're rolling this out, but it also gives them something to get behind. And if you can get all those people behind you to push it, then you can get other people behind you to push it too. And people they love a story. Like, they love a championship story. They love, don't be an underdog. They love that too. And people will support you just because they see how hard you and your people are going. Yeah. Right? It's just what it is. Like, people like to support things that they see moving, that they see are getting love, there's a lot of people that will support just because you put in so much effort. Yeah. And so, it seems small, but it's really not small. And tagging in stories as well, tagging on Twitter, tagging wherever you can acknowledge someone, I think you should. I just think it's nice to do. And it helps you solidify the relationship with them further, and you're also helping promote someone else. I think that's great. Like I said, network across. But it also has the secondary factor of like promotion and promo. Look, if you don't have some sort of extensive promo team, you got to create it. You got to create it. And, your family and friends may not be your biggest like push. I try to tell people don't necessarily rely on them, right? Because people get really disappointed sometimes where they're like, I thought they would, but figure out who those people are. Maybe it's, and even look at the landscape, because there's people online who just love music. There's tastemakers, there's people who like their whole thing is just discovering, finding, and knowing what is new and what's good, what's of quality. Build relationships with those people. To be honest, I would build with them before I build with journalists and publicists and executives, because the executives are looking to those people to know what's hot, what's new, what I should be paying attention to. You'd be surprised. Like, they're not necessarily, because if you're someone who's on the inside of it, you're the artist or whatever, of course you're going to tell me this is the best thing smoking. You better, right? If you're talking to me about it. But tastemakers and people like that, they only promote what they like.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they're doing some sort of like paid influencer thing, and even then it still has to like match their taste level. Most of them won't take a check just because you ask them to promote it. It still has to be within the lines of that. And then that's another avenue too. I think if you are going to pay for something, pay for promo, right? Like, there's all these different music pages online and tastemakers, as I mentioned, who for a small amount will promote you to their audiences. Like, really think about the people that you're trying to get to. And I think people kind of shy away from this if it's not a huge name. Again, like if it's not a huge blog, if it's not this, that, and the third. But truthfully, if we think about how it worked 10 years ago, the internet blogs, the social media platform blogs, those are the new blogs. That's what people go to find out new music. That's what people to go to find out what's happening, what's going on. And usually they have a low threshold in terms of how much they want to charge per post. You could get a post to somebody who has a page that has like 500,000 followers on it for like $50 or $125. Like, it depends on, they all have their different pricing, but you could set aside, $500 to do that. And then, use that money and get way more visibility, looks, follows, likes than you would get maybe with like a press article that may or may not be promoted on their main publication social media platforms, or may or may not break the surface. People may not want to read. They may want to just look at a quick Instagram post, or look at a content piece, or a text overlay with your music video on it. Like, there's all these different things. So I think when it comes to social media, figuring out who do we want to get, who do we want to see. Not everybody. Your audience is not everybody. It's not. No one's audience is everybody. Okay. And so really figuring out who those people are, how they consume, where they find new music, where do they go, where they get excited about it, and then figuring out how to bring that stuff into the fold for your rollout.
And reminder to not open your tweets with an @ symbol. I still see people doing that. Unless you are replying to someone, don't open a tweet with an @
or put a period in front of it.
Exactly. Yes.
That's like a little trick. You put period, @ and then you go. But like you said, Emily, if you just put the @ symbol, it'll show up in replies and it won't show up on main feed, so nobody's really seeing it.
Exactly. And, engage with your fans, reply to your fans. You can also reply to them with your community.com number or your email list link. So when someone's like, when are you coming to Cleveland? When are you coming to Atlanta? It's like, oh, here's my, don't say it like this, but like, here's my community.com number, text me. Because I didn't want to say like, here's my number, text me. So then you are, kind of flipping the script on social media companies, because we talked about how tech companies are the most valuable companies in the world. So you need to think of yourself as a tech company and collect as much data as possible in the form of mobile phone numbers and email addresses. And, for me personally, I know this isn't everyone's brand. I try to only post positive things on the internet. And that hasn't really steered me wrong. Like, once in a while when I complain about something, it definitely comes to bite me in the butt. So, keep that in mind when you're posting. And also, do you want to say anything about like pinned posts as well?
Yeah, I think pinned posts are really cool. Depending what you have going on, it could be something where like, it could be like accolades or something cool or important that happened. Maybe it's press you got, maybe it's whatever. But I think for artists, Pin posts are cool because you can really share what your latest thing is without people having to scroll down and kind of search for it. So if you post, I mean, and this is even when you're not in cycle, like rolling out, like if you post a picture, like you can pin it to the top of your page just so that it gets more engagement if someone ends up on your profile. But definitely if you're releasing, as you're releasing, like you want your album cover, you want the video, any content that's extremely relevant, like the best of it, you want to have pinned to your profile so that when people see you from all this other promo you're doing or shares of visibility or the algorithm or explore, when they go there, the information's right there. I think it's right after, maybe even before the bio, because people are so visual. Sometimes that's where they go first, their eyes go. And so you want to have that stuff right there. And I really love too what you said, Emily, about responding to comments and things. Do not be too cool. Responding to comments is the equivalent of you being at a show and shaking everyone's hand that's there and saying hi, taking a picture, having a conversation, which you also should be doing at your shows. But it's so important because one, and it's not just important, it also helps the algorithm because you commenting back on your posts or you responding to DMs and your stories and reactions and things like that, that tells the app, especially on Instagram, but also pretty much all the apps across the board, it tells them that this is something worth pushing to more of your followers because it's something people are interacting with. And so you want to do that as much as you can. Like, I don't see why not. Like, if people are taking their time out to comment, I mean, the least you could do is comment back. It's free. It's pretty easy. And I think it means a lot to people, especially if they're really a fan of you. I think it means a lot. And I think, you may not have all day, but even that hour that, Emily mentioned where it's like you're taking this hour to respond to stuff, I think that can go a long way. And I think people just appreciate that. And no matter how big you get, they will remember when you were still working and you took the time to comment to them. And you'll probably remember them too. Artists remember their day one fans. They remember. The North remembers. Like, it's like, oh no, this person's been supporting me for like 8 years now. Yeah, I'm giving them backstage passes to the show. Yeah, I'm gonna bring them out here. Yeah, I mean, you just never know. And I think it's a beautiful thing to, treat the people well who support you. I think sometimes artists are so focused on getting more supporters that they're not loving on the ones they already have because they're the ones who are going to go tell other people that are like them about you. And so that's really who I think you should be investing in the most.
Absolutely. And, when I talked about how, like, before your release is out, sharing a pre-order and or your Patreon, same with day of, and then maybe day 2 of your release, sharing your Bandcamp, because that's where you're going to have the second highest profit margins. Like, and, day 3, maybe share Spotify. Like, day 4, you can share that your music is out on Tidal. Day 5, you can share that it's out on Apple. And again, make sure you're tagging Tidal. Make sure you're tagging Spotify, because it's a way of sharing your music without saying the exact same thing every day. Right. And keep all these best practices in mind too when you land press. Okay, like press shouldn't just be in your inbox or you in a press report, or you land a press hit organically or whatever, and you pop it up on your socials. Tag the journalist, tag the outlet. Right, you want that stuff getting popped into stories. You want these journalists following you, and it's less likely that's going to happen unless you engage with that, engage with those posts properly.
Absolutely.
So what are your thoughts on SoundCloud?
I think SoundCloud is such an important pillar of music. I don't think we would have the landscape that we have now, not on the creative side, not on the consumption side, if it wasn't for SoundCloud. And I know that SoundCloud is in a different, I think, seat in terms of priority platforms in music right now. I think it just has taken on a different persona, but I still think it's a really great place for discovery. So I think that you should absolutely have your music on there too. I think people who are really into music too, like seriously into music and creating, are still on SoundCloud for sure. I think remixes are still really cool on there. And I also know that SoundCloud as a company is also investing a lot in emerging artists and indie artists too. And so they have their own platforms on social as well. And so you never know, you could become an artist that they also push and amplify just by simply having your music on there and it possibly doing one you sharing. So I say SoundCloud, Audio Mac is another platform that I feel like is really like emerging artists first. And like, I know, yes, do of course have your music on like Apple, Spotify,
Yeah.
Tidal, and all that. But don't forget about SoundCloud, Audio Mac, Pandora, Amazon Music. Like these are platforms that, you know, one, people are on there and they listen to music there. I think too, even thinking about like an Audio Mac, they have so much international appeal to where you could gain an audience outside of the US as well, just from having your music on there. And, you know, again, they also, all these different platforms provide opportunities for indie artists, especially, right? YouTube Music as well as another one, Vivo. Like they provide opportunities for artists in those in between spaces or as they're moving up. And so don't count them out. Like you could probably also, I think, build just a more niche fan base, I think, if you're still building like on those platforms. You know what I mean? Like there's it's kind of like you're cutting through traffic, honestly. I think on platforms like SoundCloud and Audio Mac, whereas like Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, I mean, and Tidal supports indie artists a lot too, I think, especially with like their playlisting and things of that nature. But I think on the larger platforms, you know, they have their priorities already, typically with larger artists when it comes to playlisting, when it comes to who's featured on like, you know, the first pages of the apps and you know who's being promoted and how things move up, how they chart, how they rank. Whereas you could be trending on like an Audio Mac or a SoundCloud same day you drop,
Yeah.
and not because you're this huge artist, but because people are listening to it. Their algorithm works however it does, and it's shooting the song to other people who would like your music. They're more likely to promote you on social media as well. You probably have a better chance of speaking to an executive at SoundCloud or Audio Mac, like to talk about how you can place your music and move it forward, versus like trying to get to someone at Spotify or Apple, because that's just how things are. And so, yeah, I think those are important platforms, and I don't care how big the artist is. I think you should have your music on there. Leave no stone unturned. That's kind of my methodology there.
Yeah, and I would recommend putting your community.com and or your email list info at the bottom. So again, you're mining that fan data, because otherwise SoundCloud is just monetizing your fans and you're not really getting much
Yeah,
out of
and you
that.
want that everywhere. Like
Yeah.
there should be no platform or profile of yours where people can't like further buy in, right? Like outside of watching, viewing, listening, even in your YouTube, like, you know, the little section where you can put your info, like you should always have something there where people can get to the next step, where they can buy in. Where can I get more of this? Because think about how you consume. When you hear a song that you like, if you really like it, you're like, well, damn, where can I get more of this? Do they have more music out? How do I find
Yeah.
it? If there's too much of how do I find it, you lose them.
Yeah.
Done. And now it's just a cool song. They may or may not download. They may or may not add to a playlist. They may or may not keep, depending on how they found it. So you want to make it very easy for people to buy, as I like to say. And in music, there's a bunch of different ways for people to buy in, but music ideally is the product, right? You're a brand, music is the product, and buying can be listening, it can be viewing, right? Watching content or watching a video. It can be downloading, it can be all these things, it can be purchasing the actual music. But whatever that thing is, it can be a follow, even, right? Them following you is not exactly the same as a monetized transaction, but it's a form of buying into you, right? And so you want to make that easy. Think about it this way. When you go to purchase something, and I don't know, maybe you're buying socks or something random online, and if it takes you to another window where you got to like put in extra stuff and do, if this is something extra you have to do, you might be like, you know what? I don't need these socks. I need to stop shopping anyway. And then boom, you're done. They done lost the sale. And so approach your brand the same way retail does, right? Where it's like, we want to make it as seamless as possible for you to buy into this. Do the same thing with your art. Make it easy. There should be no reason. And another easy thing, the way to do that is to keep your handles consistent. Like you don't want to be like superstar 324 on Instagram and then you're like hot girl 111 on Twitter, and then you're like, can't even find you on Facebook. Like, you keep it consistent as possible as well, so that if someone does a quick search on another platform or app, you come up.
Yeah.
I think, it's important. I think even when naming songs, it matters, and that's a little more in depth, in terms of like search engine optimization. But, think about that too. How easy is it for people to find your music wherever it is that they're finding it? But definitely make sure all of the information for them to buy into your community is attached and easily accessible.
Absolutely. Just a few more things, unless you have to go, because I know I'm keeping you
I'm
longer.
good. I blocked off some time, so I'm good.
Amazing. So what are your thoughts on radio?
Ooh, this is a good question. All right. So radio is still extremely helpful in terms of um, getting music across state lines, like getting that like national audience and maybe even global audience, right, for the song. Believe it or not, there are still a lot of people who drive, and so the radio's on, right? There's even like Sirius XM is built into some cars and vehicles and stuff like that. I think that's probably where people are listening the most. Some people are probably listening online, but I mean, I think radio still matters in that way because there are still millions of people who listen to radio. However, is it possible to break a record and have, mainstream success without radio? I think so. Um, Radio picks up songs that do well, that are doing well before, that thing. There's also just so much other stuff that goes into radio depending on the market, that we don't have to get into today. But I think that it's not I think it's something nice to have, but not necessarily something to chase. And not necessarily something that you need in 2023 to have a hit record. It helps tremendously. And I think if you do have it, it's a much bigger experience, but I don't think it's a necessity. I think I think it's even, I think radio is kind of the telltale sign that you have crossed over. It's like, oh, now you're on radio, like you're there now. Like the song is on radio, the artist is on radio, you've crossed over into that threshold of, superstardom at this point. Now, I will say though, making relationships with your local radio stations, radio personalities, DJs, I think all that is super important because I think what we forget too is that outside of mainstream radio, there's all this other radio, right? Like even if you take something like in New York, like Power 105, they have so many other shows that aren't the Breakfast Club, that aren't, the primetime show slots that are important, that play new music, that play new artists, that work with indie and emerging artists. Like that's who you need to be working with if you really want your song on radio. And if it crosses over to the bigger thing, great. But even just getting that sort of play, I think goes such a long way. And if you want to go to more indie radio, you can work Sirius XM. They have so many shows. They have so many people that will sit down with you and talk to you about your career and talk to you about your music. And then you are getting that play across however many stations they work on. And that's a big deal because you don't know who's listening online or otherwise who will become a fan of you. But I think that's the more approach you want to take to radio. If you have the opportunity to get a big radio hit, incredible. But I think you should be at the stage where most artists are. I think they should be more so networking with the other shows, personalities, DJs, platforms. And that's another side of the business where people really don't invest enough networking in, but I think you should be, right? Because even if you do build those relationships and you're not on radio, you might get invited to an event that they're doing. You might get to go to a show or a concert where you can shake hands and, meet other people, and all that matters.
I totally agree. And if this is, I could not agree with that more. And if it's something you're interested in exploring further, you can do a college radio campaign for pretty reasonable prices. Yes. You can work with companies like Terrorbird, Planetary Group, Powderfinger. But at the same time, and they will also tell you, and you can ask them like, hey, do you think my music works well on specialty shows? That's going to be more mainstream radio stations on their Sunday night shows. You can also ask if you think your music might work well at AAA, which is, Mark might have to help me, but adult alternative album format. I believe. But regardless, when you do start to get these plays, whether it's, you know, from meeting folks in person or you're hiring a radio promoter, just like PR, right? Like, and so few artists do this. You know, when you're getting spins, tag the station, like post about it, thank them. You know, tag the DJs. I just had the privilege of being on a conference call with Image and Heap, and she was talking about how, yeah, I just thanked a big radio station in South America and then also a super tiny one in like Eastern Europe, and they couldn't believe they heard from me. And it's like, I mean, Imogen like defines building a sustainable music career, so I wasn't surprised, like, oh, you're totally doing that right. But there's so many artists that do radio campaigns at all levels, and again, those radio reports just like sit in their inboxes, and it's like, thank these folks, and especially the, you know, the college stations. You know, the students that are the music directors there go on to be music supervisors and booking agents
100%.
and are the tastemakers within their friend group too.
I did college radio for a little bit too,
Nice,
and just the circuit and the people that I met that were in there, they are working in this industry today as well. So it's, you know, I think, again, it's building relationships is more than half of this work, right? And even if it's a situation where you are doing like an interview with someone or getting on a podcast or anything like that, promote it. Like, promote it. This person is taking the time to sit down and talk to you. Like, promote it. Say thank you. Those things just go so far. And like, another benefit to you, if you know, if it's not enough to like show love, is that you look like you're doing something, because you are, right? And like, talking about that FOMO, it's like, the things that you are doing, don't be shy to post and promote about it. Like, don't think that it's a small thing. Like, you are active, you are actively promoting your art and your work, and like, that's something to be proud of. So no matter if it's a big publication or a small radio station or something in between, like, you should constantly be sharing that stuff so that people know that you're working. Like, advertising, it used to be, it takes 7 times for us to recognize something on our brain, like 7 times we see it to like really buy into it. It's way shorter now. Even with video and sounds and stuff like that, the attention span is like, you might have like 7 seconds now, right? And so you thinking that you posted one thing one day is reaching all these people is so, it's so incorrect. Every day you need to be getting up and promoting your stuff every day, multiple times a day, really. And don't kill yourself, right? You can schedule things out. I'm a big advocate for that. There's all these tools, there's more tools than ever, but I think just having the mindset that you are your biggest commercial is, I think, the way to go, and how you just make it just becomes second nature to you. And it's not this grueling job and this thing that stresses you out and disappoints you. It's just something you do because you're an artist for real, right? I think half the battle is artists realizing that you are who you are. You may not have all of the success that you envision for yourself yet, but you have to walk and talk and move every day. Like, all the things you're doing, and this is for anyone, not just artists, but all the things that you do in a day-to-day need to match this outlook of yourself. And it's a constant work in progress, right? You're not gonna wake up and be Beyonce in a day or a week or a month or 2 years, but you will be the best version of you if every single day you get up and you only do things that contribute to being this person.
It's so true. And also, like, think about starting your own podcast. I definitely know artists that felt like they weren't connecting deep enough with their audience on social media. So start your own radio show.
Artist content is, I think, the best thing you can do. I'm really big on, let's not even wait for people to give us a yes to say, hey, we can come on their platform. You also have content. And that helps too, because if someone can see you doing your own podcast or your own content videos and pieces and etc., then at least it helps so much to envision you on their platform. So like, oh, okay, they're personable, they're funny, they're introspective, people seem to like this. Yeah, you want to come on my show? Like, easiest thing you could do. And if you're ever in such a dry spot for some reason where you aren't getting picked up by press, you aren't getting interviews, you aren't getting radio spin, you aren't getting all these things, you and your fans have your own thing going on, right? Like, content is king, and it always will be. There's people who don't do anything else but have a podcast mic. That's just where we are right now. And they have, they had something to say, and they started saying it every day. And then you see them having these huge platforms now, all these opportunities. Like, it's the same thing with you. Like, do not be afraid to create your own thing and your own platform either. Like, I think we wait a lot of times too long for someone to notice you or to notice us and be like, hey, come on here and share it with the world. Like, no, start your own thing. What else? You don't have nothing else to do, right? So, like, if you're not making music, you need to be making a way to push that music out into the world and get it to all the people that you know need to hear it, that are literally just waiting to discover you. But I'm a huge advocate for artists creating their own platforms, even after you get the press and the looks. I think you should still have your own something that's sacred to you and your fan base, that feels like you. You don't have to deal with anyone else's parameters, and you can just be expressive. I think that's one of the best things that artists could do for themselves today, outside of, all the other things that come with being consistent and creating.
Absolutely. So are traditional music videos necessary beyond, anything the artists might want to do creatively? Or like, how do you advise your clients on their overall video strategy?
Yes, music videos are necessary. It's content. And it's probably the best, most well thought out, seamless content that you can get done. I know that video consumption is different now, right? Like, we don't have traditional, like, music video shows where it was guaranteed that X amount of people would see your music video if you made it on here. I feel like we look at that as a problem, but me, not so much, because that was very limited. What? MTV had, what was it, 20 slots a day at some point?
Yeah,
Maybe 10.
right.
I know BT had, like, 106 & Park had 10.
Sure.
If you ain't make the top 10, that was it. You know how hard it was to get your video placed on TV? And so people are always like, yeah, we don't have good music videos anymore because we don't have shows. We were only watching a couple a day, y'all. It wasn't, and this was across, sometimes if it was MTV, it was across genres. Like, how many people we had to try to fit into these music video watching, right? YouTube is massive. Bevo is massive. Like, you have the opportunity for, YouTube is owned by Google. Google is the, I think now, second biggest search engine on the world, and on the entire planet. Their algorithm is literally digital gold. You put your song, your video out on YouTube, and you should also, FYI, be putting your songs on YouTube as well, just the audio version, lyric videos, all that stuff goes a long way. One, for discoverability, but also even they're monetizable, just like a music video. So there's no reason why you shouldn't also have all your tracks on YouTube as well. And again, that stuff ends up on playlists. You could also look at YouTube playlists and reach out to those people and ask them to add you. Like, I'm on YouTube literally all day long. I don't really watch TV. I'm really on YouTube, and it's incredible how songs end up in rotations. And so you want to have the audio version and or a lyric version. If you want to do, I say I like the lyric ones because then people can learn the words, and that's pretty seamless. But at least have that, and then music videos. Because another thing is, you may not be able to afford to do music videos for all your songs.
Right.
I get it, right? But at least if you have the audio on YouTube, you're still pretty much getting the same similar output from YouTube. You're getting that stuff, and then maybe you have one or two, if you can swing it, 3 music videos from the project that you invested in that have a treatment that people can watch and be entertained by. Why? 1, monetization. 2, it's helping reach, more of an audience. Honestly, shucks, if you want to talk like numbers, like Gen Z consumes music on YouTube. They're not really super into streaming like that. And it makes sense, right? And so, and there's not just Gen Z, but there's so many people that are like that. Like, this is where we're consuming music, is YouTube. You look at our artists like NBA Youngboy, YouTube. Like, this is not, that fan base is from YouTube, and I'm willing to bet any money, like, it's from YouTube. And there's so many artists like that. And so if you skip the music videos, or skip just having your songs, even the audio on YouTube, you're skipping out on this large fan base, this large algorithm. Like, you can't beat Google. I'm sorry. You can't beat Google in terms of like reach. And so I think on that side, things important. On the more artistic side, I think music videos are the best way to express the art outside of audio. Like, I think that still matters. I think fans still enjoy it. I think that there's also a lot of people who may not understand a song when they hear it, but once they see it, they become an entire fan of the song. It's happened to me a million times. I know it's happened to a bunch of people a million times. And a lot of times the video is what takes the song over the edge. It can be an amazing song, but again, in such a competitive market, your music videos are also an opportunity for you to stand out. If you are a person who wants a viral moment, that may be where it happens. And not necessarily that you did something so shocking, but just the shareability of videos. Every social media platform prioritizes video content. Yeah. Right? They're not going to prioritize you putting the audio up with a graphic or something. Like, they're prioritizing video. So now you can have your music video chopped up in pieces. Shucks. You can premiere it with just a trailer, lead people over to YouTube to watch the full thing. You can chop it up into pieces and have people consume the pieces so that they lead them over to that as well. I mean, it's a great promotional tool. People, if you just look at how people on your personal platforms consume and share things, they're more likely to share a video than they are to share just a still something, right? There's movement going on, there's color grading, there's editing, there's a story, there's something. You really gotta make your own movies with the music. I think I don't see any reason to skip that. That's another, outside of marketing, I think music videos are a big marketing tool. But I think that's another space where you really want to invest your budget into, especially if it's tight. Like, do not have a music video. I would tell an artist to push back their release damn near if they don't have something visual. Even if it's maybe not a music video, you need something that is visual for people to gravitate and hold on to, because that is just the way the world works right now. There's no getting around it. You need some sort of visual component to complement the music. Yeah, so that's my answer on music videos. And again, you can chop the content up and it can go on Instagram, it can go on Twitter, it can go on TikTok, it can go on Facebook, for platforms that prioritize video. So you're getting pushed regardless, right? You're getting pushed further than you would if you didn't have a visual attached. And then also, again, when people discover you, one of the first things they do is go to YouTube, because they want to see more videos. They want to watch it in real time. Like, we are visual people more than ever before. And so I think skipping music videos is like, I think that's insane. But that's my take on that. I'm big music, and make them creative as you can. Make them creative as you can. Do not follow the music videos that we like, that maybe that pierce through, that maybe we didn't know the artist. This is how we discovered the artist, all that stuff. It's because it was something different. It was something unique. Try not to copy paste the video treatment styles of other artists that you see are successful. It is extremely boring for the viewer. They're watching that person's video because that person has established a style already that they're comfortable with, and they're already a fan. So you should be creating creative music videos that match what it is you're doing, that match your brand, which match your feel. And truthfully, I know a lot of videographers and directors, and they are tired as well of doing the same video over and over and over again. So really, when you're talking to whoever's producing the video for you, I say you come with ideas as well. Examples maybe of things you've seen that you thought were cool, but come with ideas, and then also give them the freedom to further build this thing out. Like, don't be so stuck on like, oh, my music video should look like this because I don't know if this person's video looks like this, and like, you don't let them be creative and possibly create something that could be your moment. Like, if nothing else, let the music video be the creative portion of this. I think it is a fast track to, further building out your base and getting the music out there.
Totally. And remember that you have a nicer camera on your phone than artists had access to in the pre-digital era, when like millions.
100%. Yeah. So you could make your own video, really, and then maybe have somebody, you could go on Fiverr and find somebody that's good at editing, and they make your iPhone clips look cool.
Yep.
And they insert effects and they do like all this stuff. I mean, again, going back to, I know how it looks online when you're seeing people do all this stuff that looks super professional, but I know professional videographers who insert iPhone clips and do, editing tricks and stuff like that. Like, it's not all super high level $1 million, whatever. Like your favorite artist doesn't have $1 million to shoot a music video most of the time. Like there's other stuff that has to be taken care of. So, you got to make it work. And yes, I'm not going to lie to you. Once you go past certain levels, yes, things get bigger and it's more quality and more access and you have more money to do cool stuff and like great movie like things, but you have to figure out how to maximize where you are. And there's way too many tools and there's way too much internet for you to sit around trying to wait for things to be perfect to create and get things out there. Like again, your favorites artist, favorite artist started out somewhere very probably not high level perfect, excellent, budgeted visual. So remember that. And you're creative. So be creative.
Yeah.
Don't let what you're seeing make you feel like you're not who you are. Like you're an artist. You are one of the most coveted people. Wish they had the creativity that artists have. And it's like we're in a space where because of the way things have to be consumed and outputted, that I think artists are confused. Artists are thinking they're not the creative ones. And it's like, no, you still are. You just got to flex your muscles a little bit, like for the landscape that we're in.
Yeah, amazing. So one last work question, one personal professional question, and then we'll open it up to you guys. How should artists work with brands, and what have you seen go well or not go well?
Love this one too. These are good questions, Emily. Excellent questions. So brands. With brands, I think, okay, it's another thing. It just all goes back to being authentic. Like, if you're into wellness, don't ask for a partnership with an energy drink. Like, be yourself. And I think about the way I approach and how Brown to Perfection, how we approach artist brand partnership things is we sit down and we actually get to know the artist, and we get to know, there's some basic things that every artist kind of like uses or would like. And so there's kind of companies that kind of just would fit just because they make music. But for the most part, we try to tailor that to where it's like, what is this artist doing a day to day? What do they like? What do they like to eat? What do they wear? What products do they use? What do they like to do for fun? Like that's the kind of stuff you should be thinking about when you're trying to figure out what types of brands you would want to partner with. And then I think artists, especially emerging artists, you want to try to find brands that are in a similar place that you are, right? There's so many brands that have money, but have not as much visibility or popularity as they want. They have all this infrastructure, but they just don't have like the push or the marketing avenue to the audiences that they want to reach. So if you can find a company like that that's newer but needs some promotion, those are usually the first that will be willing to work with you. And then it's better because they also don't have all the big rules and hoops and stuff you have to jump through to work with a major brand that's already established as a huge corporation, right? So you could damn near make this your campaign and like do a bunch of cool stuff with them, and they sponsor it, or they're willing to sponsor events. Like if you need money to produce a listening event or a concert or something like that, or a show, a lot of times it's the smaller brands who are putting up the bigger dollars. Like, and that could pay for anything. That could be paying for the venue, for the DJ, for decor, for a photo booth, for equipment, for marketing, for any of these things, for your merch. Like, really identify the companies. I like, once you figure out again what kind of company you're looking for, is it a beverage company? Is it a liquor company? Is it a clothing company? Is it a beauty brand? Whatever the case is it equipment? Then you do your search, right? And Instagram is a wonderful place because you're able to kind of see what the brand does or does have going on right now. Check out their website and stuff, but also you can DM them immediately. Introduce yourself, tell them that what you have going on, that you're looking to partner, and ask them what is the best way to pitch formally. Most of the time, the social media manager or even the brand. One time I reached out to this huge candy brand just off a whim, DM them. It happened to be like the SVP of their marketing who was running the Instagram, barely, but running the Instagram. And we were on the phone the next day, and they were a huge brand partner for us for like a bunch of stuff we had going on. Like, just reach out. And then they're either going to direct you to something where you can fill out a form, or they're going to say, here's the email, reach out, I would love to see it. And then, you go from there. I think another thing is be mindful of if you just want product, if you want monetary, if you're open to both, and what those numbers look like for you, and be flexible as well. I think that's important to just knowing what you even want to ask for as well. Um, Now, again, it's not impossible to do this yourself or with your team, but of course, it's always better to have someone who has more expertise in it as well. But there's also so many templates online of how to pitch properly. And I'm not an advocate of copy and pasting on ChatGPT, but it can at least kick you off, right? And then you go in and you edit it, you make it your own. So yeah, I would say that's how to approach brands. I think artists underutilize brand partnerships and the effectiveness of it. It to me is a more mutually beneficial partnership than a lot of things because the brand needs something, you need something. Um, Again, if it's a larger brand, pay attention to campaigns they've already done, where it seems like they're kind of trying to lean their resources to, and go from there. Of course, TikTok is another great place to see that. I think you can really see a lot more these days on TikTok what brands are interested in when it comes to how they want to partner with creators. And then also, not for nothing, a easy way to do this too is to, let's say if it's like, I don't know, like a place you like to eat or whatever the case is, tag them in your story consistently. Tag them in your post. If it's a feed post, if you did a photo dump and like the salad is in there, tag Kava. Like they pay attention to stuff like that. And then you also can just kind of prove like, yeah, this is something this is an ideal partnership. I really do like this product. And so my audience likes it too because I use it and like they're going to buy into this. I mean, again, sometimes too, you have to build relationships with brands, especially if you're still building your brand. But hey, if they're not willing to give you, you can, again, if they can't cut you money, ask if they can send you products. And then you can just, post it and just, they'll repost you because they sent you a case of energy drink or whatever the case is. Now you're posting your story. Or also, what you can do is just start to build out the relationship. And so maybe it's not a yes now, but it's a yes later. Maybe you ask them, hey, well, can I get a discount code for my followers? And just do a post and sponsor. Like there's so many ways to start building that relationship. And it's another one of those things where you would be surprised how far it goes. Like I have relationships with brands from years ago that now will give me anything I ask whenever I ask for it. Like, and it's because I've built a relationship and think about how you can help them. Like maybe it's product placement in your music video, right? And then maybe that is why you're asking for money. Or again, you're going to include them in all your advertising for your release event. Or, I can guarantee that I'm going to have 200 people come here. Like, how can we partner together for visibility? And if one thing goes well, most people are going to want to work with you again. So I think that's kind of like the emerging artist approach to brand partnerships. And again, you cut out a lot of noise if you just figure out what kind of brands would make sense for you. Like, don't go Nike just because it's a big name and that would be crazy for you, right? Like, are you really into, like, do you fit the brand messaging and, the brand motto? Would you be a shoe-in for some of the stuff you've seen them do? Do you have an idea for something that they could do that you think would be cool? Like, come to the table, I think, with something as well is like the best approach. But if you can reach out to the kind of those in-between brands that aren't yet a household name, you can really rack up in that area in terms of like resources and relationships.
Yeah, and brands are also looking for engagement numbers more so than just like followers. So keep that in mind. And also really to echo, I love your comments on like developing brands as well. Keep nonprofits in mind too. You could put 100%. Together some side of promo trade and nonprofits have money also. So.
Yeah, you might end up doing like a jingle or something for them and have like a huge check going on, like just for being yourself and being an artist. Like I think again, we spend so much time looking at all the things that we've seen work already that we don't spend enough time trying to look for the next thing that could work, the non-traditional thing that will help you stand out in this sea of FOMO that's going on. So I think all those things are important. And then again, having your analytics ready to present alongside your pitch is super important too, because that's the real question is how many people can you get in the room? How much engagement can you get on the profile? Like, I want to know that up front so that I know how much as a brand we can support back.
That's right. So last question from me, how do you find balance amidst all of this, your career, social media, your clients, all the marketing?
Yeah. I think it's a daily quest. But for me, I have learned sometimes the hard way to set boundaries. That's like a big thing. Not just boundaries with like how I allow people to treat me and like work with me, but I mean boundaries, of course, with my time. Um, I rest as much as I work, and I work a lot, or I try to, right? And like my rest is non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Um, and I think people, when they start working with me, companies, I think they catch on very quickly of like, when I'm on, I am on, and you're gonna get a lot. But when I'm not, you gotta respect that, because I need to be able to recharge. I need to be able to think. I'm a real creative, not like a pretend one either. So again, I need time to just do things that I find interesting. I need to watch documentaries. I need to read. I need to paint. I need to lay on the floor. I need to meditate. I need to do yoga. I need to like go play in the grass. I need to go up to the pool. Like, I need to do things. I need to go to a restaurant and try new foods. I need to cook. Like, I need to do things that just keep me wired properly. And so that's a big part of the balance. It's hard, I will say, because sometimes I can't show up for people maybe in my personal life the way I want to, because like I can't be on the phone right now. Like, I actually did not talk to anyone else for the next 24 hours, because I've had so many text calls, DMs, emails, uh, presentations, Zooms, interviews, whatever the case, right? It's so much correspondence. And so I really work hard to really quiet my mind. I meditate regularly. I pray regularly. Like, I do other things that I find therapeutic. I think therapy is a big thing as well. Like, if you can find a way to affordably do therapy, I think that that's great. If you can't, I think that like filling yourselves with therapeutic knowledge and like the things that you ingest are really important, I think, as well, in terms of balance. And then knowing what you want, right? Like, don't let life decide for you what it is you're doing, the life you're living. Don't let societal parameters, and like, I get it, like we all got to be able to like work, pay our bills, survive. We live in a capitalist society, but I think there's still an overarching choice that you have as an individual to insert things that you enjoy, and not necessarily things that cost so much money. But I think just carving out space for yourself is so important. Not taking yourself too seriously. Like, I'm a person first and foremost. I'm a human being. I am not perfect, never will be, don't really want to be. I want to be the best me. And like, that's my goal every day. But I think a part of balance is also just knowing that I'm human, right? Sometimes I'm just having a bad day. Sometimes I didn't get enough sleep. Sometimes I didn't eat enough. Sometimes I didn't get to the gym. Oh my God, my life is not over. It's okay. Tomorrow, thankfully, is hopefully another day, right? I think you're not going to check off all your boxes every day. You're not going to be, if you are, so for me, I'm a CEO. I also manage an incredible artist, All Star H.E.R. I am a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, right? Like, I have my hands in other, I'm a startup advisor, right? Like, I invest, like I have all these other things going on. I create my own content. I do speaking engagements. Like, I have all those things, right? I'm also myself, just Junae from Harlem. Hey, I'm not going to be super excellent at every single one of those things every single day. But what I can say is that I do whatever my 100% is in that area for the day. And that will look different every day. If it's a day where I get to be on the phone with my mom for 2 hours, ding, 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 100 points in the daughter category, right? But that might be once a week, maybe. I might be so busy. Like, it depends. Like, I might be an excellent manager today. Tomorrow, I might be only able to take care of 2 or 3 things, but those 2 or 3 things were things that needed to be taken care of. And then the next day, I'll try again. Like, I might be, shucks, I might be for a week straight. I'm waking up at 6 a.m. every day, breakfast, gym, meditate, work, do this, take care of my dog. Oh, I'm a champion. And the next week, I might be horrible at it, but I was excellent as a CEO.
Yeah.
I was an excellent leader. I did all these things. And so I think we freak ourselves out trying to be the perfect like lifestyle YouTuber of like of our own like universe. But you just have to be honest and self-aware enough to know when you are giving 100%, when you're doing your best, and when maybe you're not. And if you're not doing your best, then that's something to explore within yourself. But I think that's my balance, is like setting boundaries, but also knowing that I'm human, and also being consistently 100%, even if what it looks like changes. I do not go to bed any day feeling like I didn't do enough, because I know I did enough, because my goal every day is to do enough. And I know that like within myself, my favorite affirmation, I always say it, I am more than enough and nothing meant for me will ever miss me. And like I have to live by that. So, you know, it's a constant thing. I think we think of time as like the months, the weeks, the days, the years. I try to think of time as like the activity, the thing we bring to completion, right? So like it may take me, if it takes me 10 years to make $10 million, the $10 million got made. I'm not going to sit here and fret over it took 10 years. If it takes me 2 years to make $10 million, wonderful. I'm more focused on doing the things I have to do every day to reach the 10. I'm not focused on like, how long is this going to take, right? The same thing when I work out. My trainers, they always laugh at me because they'll be like, do this exercise. And I'm like, how many? And they're like, okay, this. Or they're like, do it for this amount of time. I'm like, I want to know how many because I just want to get through it. They're like, do you want to break up these reps? I'm like, no. I'm just like, I'm gonna go. I'm like, this could take me 30 minutes, it could take me 10 minutes, but I know I gotta get 30 of them done. So I'm just focused on the 30. 1, 2, by 4, I might have to take a break and get some water. That's fine, but I'm just gonna keep going. And like, I think when you're focused on like, and I know people hate this because when you're like trying to figure it out, this is the one quote I don't like to hear. It's like, think about the journey, not the destination. It's like, how am I supposed to not think about the destination? That's where I want to go. But the truth is, the further you go, the more you realize like, oh, this is really about how I get there, not me getting there. And as you accomplish things, it's like, oh, this is great. But you're really thinking about how you got there. So that's my balance answer. And taking care of myself. Right? Drink my water, eat my vegetables, pay attention to my body, pay attention to my mental health. Like these are things that when you're hustling, bustling, seem not important, but your body will shut down on you. And I think you're really at your best when you're taking care of yourself first and everything else after.
So true. All right. Do we have any questions? I know we just unloaded a lot of marketing information on you. If you have a question, come up to the mic and introduce yourself and ask away.
Hi, how are you?
Is this mic on?
Hello.
I think so.
Hi.
Okay.
Thank you for all of your insight and expertise.
Of course. What's your name?
My name is H.E.R, and I'm a recording artist, songwriter based here in New York City. And I've got a lot of music, but nothing's out yet, and I'm now getting ready to release. I was wondering if you had any specific advice as far as like rolling out content, visualizers, and all of that. Like, what would you say is an appropriate time frame between like letting people know you have a visualizer coming, getting that visualizer out, and then how much space is enough but not too much between the visualizer and the full video?
Right. Excellent question that I get a lot with clients, like no matter how new or seasoned the artist is. So great question. I think what I would ask first, I think there's like a more overarching answer, but I think for you, because you said you haven't put out music yet, I would just make sure that your platforms are awake. first. So whether you post like a picture or, some other engaging kind of things first, just so that no matter what cadence you're dropping in, the participation and the engagement is there for you. So I think that's one. But like kind of the overarching conversation, I don't like to stretch things out too far. But as a new artist, you do want to give yourself more time than an established artist.
So like
So an established artist could probably drop things like Monday, they drop that something's coming. They could maybe Wednesday, they drop the visualizer, and then Friday, the video's out, right?
yeah.
I think for you, I would add a little bit more space between the visualizer and the actual, like maybe full drop,
Yeah.
and maybe you do like a countdown. I would actually use the visualizers as the countdown.
And like
So like
note
if you
that.
can create
Yeah.
maybe five of them, then let them all be like a five, four, three, two, one kind of thing, so that you can stretch the promo out over like at least a week. And if you come up with more things to do in between, you can stretch it a little further. You even get like a week and a half, 2 weeks in, if maybe in between you're like doing a live interview, or you're answering questions, or you're walking them through the behind the scenes of the process. Like, if you have like BTS photos from the video shoot, like you can kind of space it out. But I think giving them something every day leading up is a good idea. But I think anything longer than 2 weeks is a drag, and you kind of lose the momentum and people's attention span. So I'd say try to keep it between 1 and 2 weeks.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Yeah, get on up there.
Hello, hi. My name is Victory Hester. I'm a singer, songwriting producer. I've done events. I did a little bit of college radio myself. And firstly, I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to do this. This has been really insightful. And yeah, I'm really happy that I spent my time here. So the question I have, and it is based on what you said earlier, it was just a comment you said that it's interesting once you start putting out music, you realize that your friends and family aren't necessarily your fan base. And I bring that up because I've noticed that Instagram is my strongest platform. However, something that I am struggling with is building fans organically, specifically through that platform, whereas TikTok, it's a lot more easier, I feel, to gain more fans that you don't necessarily have to go out and meet and do shows and things of that nature. So I guess my question is one, am I looking at this incorrectly? And two, if not, do you have any tips on how to build more fans organically, specifically through Instagram?
Yeah, great question. It's interesting. I kind of feel like if I list out the platforms in terms of like organic, like reach, Instagram is one of the hardest, right behind Facebook. But they're a Facebook company, so you can imagine kind of like the similarities in the algorithm. TikTok's algorithm is pretty amazing in terms of finding, it's a little scary, honestly, finding stuff that matches people, right? So you're spot on there. I think Twitter is great as well, because once people like it, they're going to share it, and the shareability on Twitter is incredible. Instagram is interesting because they feed you things that they think you'll like, but you have to already be liking things, if that makes sense. So I think to find a little bit of more organic growth on Instagram, video for sure helps. Like we all know that posting like reels and stuff like that helps because it has its own separate explore page. Um, Ironically, hashtags are not completely dead. Just don't go over like three of them, because people still use that for search. I think it's little things with Instagram, like having the location tag, safely. Um, Making sure, because like the geo tags are still attached. But I think with Instagram also is engaging with other platforms. So what I mentioned about the music promo, where like you actually like reaching out to certain platforms and seeing if they'll repost your work, whether it be free or whether it be a small cost attached, that's a big thing too. because their promo and they've got a real handle on like their algorithm, their audience, their shareability. I think collaborating on Instagram is a good idea too. So figuring out how to collab with someone who also has an audience that maybe has a similar size to yours or maybe slightly bigger, going live with them, doing collab posts with them. I think all of that stuff matters. Like on Instagram, you really got to figure out how to stretch it, and creating shareable content, point blank, period. And don't be afraid to ask your audience to do the things you want them to do. So if that means in the caption saying, hey, can you, share this to your story, repost it, whatever the case is, you'd be surprised. A lot of people will just go ahead and share it because they're not doing it. Well, why not? They like it anyway, so they'll share it. I mean, you could do some sort of like fan kind of contest thing where a part of the people who win, like they're sharing it. Like you just got to kind of find little ways to make your content more shareable. That's pretty much the game on Instagram, I think, to grow your audience. And then just make sure that whatever you choose to be your shareable content, make sure that when people do come back to your page, it's prime for them to stay. So it's easy for them to kind of get a gist of who you are, find your music, and all those different things. So I would say, again, when it comes to Instagram, I think collaborating, whether that be with another individual or with like a promo page or something like that, engaging with other platforms. Like if you see that there's platforms where people are at, they need to keep seeing your name pop up. They keep seeing your profile pop up. And then also just like creating shareable content that is engaging, that is aligned with what the platform is pushing at the moment. I know they change it a lot, but I think, again, once you kind of find your step and what works for you, then you'll start to see the growth come in.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Very
You're
cool.
so welcome.
Yeah. Well, Junae, thank you so much for all of this time. Let's give it up for Junae, everyone.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It was a pleasure. These were great questions, and hopefully something that we talked about helps the next superstar, do their thing. I'm really excited. And yeah, I think being an artist is so much, right? There's good things, but there's hard things. And so I have a real soft spot for just helping artists figure out what's next. And it's a long haul, but I say if you really are passionate about it, you really care about it, don't give up. If you're consistent, your people will find you, and not just your fans, but the people who will also help you build this out further, like a team, like a partner. You just got to keep at it and just never forget, why you started in the first place.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. Thank you again for all of your time, your wisdom, your knowledge. We are so honored.
Of course. Thank you guys so much. This was great.
Yeah. So that's a wrap for this episode. Join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern. This is the only episode this season we're doing at 11. I know it's been at 4, so I really want to stress tomorrow is at 11 a.m. Eastern in real life here at Tower Records, Tower Labs in Brooklyn, or via live stream on our YouTube as we discuss your live strategy and efficient touring with the best known and most influential concert promoter of his generation, and I would say generations that have come after him, Peter Shapiro. In the meantime, thanks so much to Bandzoogle, podcast manager Mike Zimmerlich, engineer Nathan Kane, Matthew Wong for composing the show's music, Danny, David, and Jake at Tower Records, the Ally Coalition, Liquid Death, Hal Leonard, and of course the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment's New York Music Month for making this all happen. Again, huge thanks to Junae Brown for all of the time and wisdom and knowledge today, and we'll see you tomorrow.